Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me on one of my Friday lives. If you can see me, give me a thumbs up, like the stream, and say hello in the live chat and let me know where you're tuning in from. I'm actually here live on Friday, April 25th, 2025. So if you guys are watching this on Saturday or Sunday, we're no longer live. Please don't send any payments for readings, otherwise you will be refunded. I'm here every Friday around 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. That's 4 p.m. on the Pacific Coast and 7 p.m. Eastern. We alternate between tarot and astrology, and this week we've got an up-and-coming new moon in Taurus on Sunday. So I'll be answering your guys' questions that you have about that particular transit, or maybe you guys have a question about a natal aspect, an up-and-coming transit, or maybe you just want to know what the heck is going on. So make sure that you guys like this, comment in the live chat. You guys can also come back to your readings at a later date as they kind of play out. And click the subscription button below, subscribe. I'm here every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. We've got lots of content on the channel, long form content for your transit updates, new full moon, eclipses, retrogrades, horoscopes, so much stuff. So for more about me and my work, or maybe you want to book a personal reading, click the links below in the description. Head over to beyondtheveiltarot.com. While you're there, sign up for my newsletter. In May, I'm going to be coming out with a new webinar. That's going to be a Saturn return boot camp for those of you guys who are getting ready to have your Saturn return in Aries. I've got you covered. I'm working on that right now. I hope to have it out before the end of the month, so that way you guys are ready to go. If you're new around here, if you want to get a reading, you'll see a QR code somewhere around here. You can scan that. That'll take you to my PayPal. Very, very important that when you send payment, you have to send your birth details. So I need to know the time exactly with the AM and the PM, the date, including the month spelled out if you guys can, because I know we have a lot of international people, as well as the year. And let me know what your question is, and include the location of birth as well. Now, usually this can be found on a birth certificate. If you don't have that info, you can always grab it and you can come back at a later date. We are doing readings for $55 US donation. In the memo box, please put that information along with your question. We're also doing synastry readings for relationship astrology for $70. And if you guys don't know, I've got memberships on my channel. So I have 3 different levels of memberships. If you guys want to support me as a full-time content creator, Level 3 is going to get a reading with me every single month. So once a month you can pick if you want tarot or astrology. You get to skip the line. You don't have to wait. So you are VIP. And we usually have a scroll that's going to go, oh, it's up at the top this time. It's going to be at the top, where if you see your name, that means I already got your guys' donation, or you're already in the queue. So let me say hi to everybody. What's going on, everyone? So La Marina's here, Deanna's here, Ripples, Emma. I know there's some people who won't be here live, so I got your guys' messages. What's up, Rum Rum? I got your payment. Thank you. What's up, Natalie? Can you confirm your birth info? Oh, I see it. I'll add you to my list. Let me do that before I forget. Let's see, Natalie. And you'll hear me calling out a few names at a time. That's just letting you know that your reading is coming up and it's on deck. But if I see you, if you see your name up there, that means that I've already got you. What's up, Dorothy? She's here to listen. Hey, Laurel, let me know if you sent a payment. I'll do an update and I'll take a look at the PayPal and see. Holy crap, already so many. If you become a member, you just send the question and your birth details in the chat. So if you sign up, it's going to go through YouTube, but you can send that information in the chat. What's up? David's here. All right, guys. Well, one more quick thing. Gosh, I'm like losing my memory. I won't be here next week, so I don't know if I told you guys that. I talk about it on the Sunday video. Usually we do tarot next week, but I'm actually going to be out of town for my husband's birthday. So I'll be back on May the 9th. So we will be back just in time for that spicy full moon in Scorpio. We'll be doing astrology readings then. Hopefully, maybe I can make it up in between. We'll see if we can do another tarot, but I'll definitely be back the next week. For those of you guys who I have who are already in the queue, Deanna, La Merina, Ripples, Emma, and Natalie, I have all of you guys. We're going to take you first. But I also have Katie, Romero, Miranda, Tamara, Sabrina, Whitney, and Carly. So if you hear your name, that means I already have you in my little list, and I will be going one by one. And it looks like, thanks, Miranda. I wasn't sure which Miranda it was, so I'll update that. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get going. I'll have to make a mental note to make sure that that was the right time for Miranda, but that's okay. And we're going to start first with Diana. And after Diana, we're going to be moving on to La Merina and Ripples. We'll leave the QR code up. You guys can sign up. We'll let you know when we're calling last call, when we do a cutoff. Usually once we have about so many people, we'll kind of start to wrap it up. Also, if you guys can't make it, you can't stay, you want to get your reading, you can still sign up for your reading. You can make your donation. You can come back. So once this is live, you guys can kind of do the playback. Okay? All right. So Diana sent me this message. Let me pull this up here. I think you actually sent it. You sent both on here and on PayPal. So Diana says, paying to have another reading this month. My for real job is driving me crazy. Esoteric business is gaining steam after purposely slowing down. Irishman's daughter is sick and I wish I could do more to support him. What tips and tricks do you have for me during the new moon and my 10th house squaring Pluto and in Aquarius and your natal Mars? All right. So we're looking here at this new moon that's coming up. It's going to be on Sunday. So let's skip ahead a little bit. And obviously, if you guys haven't seen my new moon video, check it out. We're going to talk about a lot of it tonight. So you guys are going to hear a lot about some of the aspects. New moons are always new opportunities to plant seeds, right? So you know I'm a Placidus girl, but the new moon for a Leo rising is going to talk about a new opportunity, basically, to plant seeds when it comes to work. So I hear you, job's driving you crazy, trying to kind of streamline and make some headway when it comes to your other business that you're kind of trying to grow. So just in a nutshell, you know, you're going to have a new moon that's right on the cusp of your 10th house, which is taking place this week. And then you're going to have, in about a month, the next new moon, which will be in Gemini, is also going to be in your 10th house. So you get a little bit of opportunity to work with both. Technically, this one's closer to being in your 9th. So it's going to be more about marketing. It's going to be more about traveling. There's going to be more themes also revolving around learning. And kind of connecting and teaching, all right? And what's difficult with this new moon, just in general, not even looking at your aspects yet, is that this new moon is at 7 degrees. So that means it's featuring a square to Mars in Leo, and it's also featuring a square to Pluto in Aquarius. So really, you know, you'll hear other astrologers kind of saying, well, you have an opportunity to redefine, you know, your career through this new moon. And there's a lot of pressure because of the squares, and it does not want to let up, because fixed signs don't want to change. So yes, it's squaring Mars in your 12th house, where maybe you're feeling like you want to hurry up and go and you quickly want to make change and you're getting a little restless or impatient, or maybe you're feeling anxious. You're also simultaneously seeing it square Pluto in your 6th house, which is going to be about, okay, well, is this new opportunity work-wise coming at the cost of an old job? You know, what do I need to change, transform, or purge in regards to your schedule, your habits, and your routines to finally push this ahead? Now, I do think it's going to kind of bring on the whole sign astrology as well, because it's going to square Pluto in your 7th. So it's going to represent like there being some crisis going on with your partner. So I'm sorry to hear that his daughter is sick, especially if this was like somebody who you were hoping to kind of like help you work on the business or build a business or participate in things. It kind of puts you in a position of going, oh man, I have to man the ship, because the sun rules your chart. So you're dealing with something kind of changing, or kind of a little bit of pressure with a relationship. And then the square to not just transit Mars, but your natal Mars is really pushing you out of the 12th house. And it's saying, okay, it's time to show up, especially because the sun is connected to Leo, where Mars is. So this is like your opportunity to go, even though against all odds, I feel like there was some tension maybe with the distance with the relationship. Maybe it's also pushing you to really redefine or dramatically transform your relationship to other people. That could be new clients, that could be offerings, that could also be people who are going through major transformative periods. They may actually really benefit from your teaching, right? New moon in the 9th. The positives, because I do want to focus on the positives, is that for your natal Saturn and also for your natal Capricorn placements, this is actually a really nice moon. So it's going to be trining Saturn in your first house, which tells me as long as you're able to stay focused, also really practicing the necessary boundaries. And Saturn retrograde in Virgo makes me feel like it's about the takeaway from the lessons that you had recently with, oh, I have to be slowing down. I can't be overworking and stressing myself out. Like, I'm going to make myself sick if I'm stressed out about, second house things, money, that kind of stuff. Work, where you're cutting back, Saturn. And then it's also trining your Sun and your Venus. It's in a tight, almost exact trine to your Venus, which is going to bring you obviously opportunities for better communications, money. It's also going to be about kind of strengthening your schedule, kind of tightening it up a little bit. So I do feel like this is a difficult new moon in general, especially for the fixed rising signs, but I don't think it's bad. What's baked into this is going to be 6 months of intensity. And really where the new moon is the focal point of absorbing all of the tension. So where you're like, I just want to hurry up and travel more and teach and do all these Mars things. Quit my job also, Pluto in the 6th. It's pushing you to be optimistic, to have faith, and also really build on relationships, 7, with people who are going to be at a distance. So that's kind of how I see all of this playing out. All right, so obviously the next 30 days are going to feel a little intense for everybody who's going through this new moon, especially with some of the squares. But 6 months from now, this will materialize and kind of turn into what's going to be then a full moon in Taurus. So I want to look at, well, what is that doing for the full moon 6 months from now? So let's look. There we go. So you're going to have a full moon right on your midheaven, right? And that full moon is ruled by Venus. And Venus is going to be chilling in your 3rd house. It will be coming into a trine with Jupiter, which does seem to kind of suggest you've got a new community or a new group or people who you can be teaching or sharing with. It also is coming into like the later degree, and it's beginning to square Jupiter. So it's actually pushing you to teach, share, bring in more money. It's also going to be about letting go of any kind of fears or insecurities that you have about making like home changes. So I'm not mad at the Venus Jupiter square. It's going to make things feel even sweeter and like bigger. And knowing that this is going to turn into a full moon right on your midheaven, still trining your Sun, still trining your Venus, I think is actually really wonderful. I think that the goal here with this new moon is, hey, I'm going to have time where, you know what, I'm going to kind of be more on my own. I'm going to have time where I'm going to have to be more focused on my partner, on my clients, or on my audience. And I'm focusing on building something solid through working with others with that moon at a 7. I think that's going to be really the key. And it's probably going to be people who are either other teachers, practitioners. It could be people in other countries. This could be working with like a mentor or even somebody who is helping you with the process of publishing, creating, putting together courses. Those kinds of things are probably going to start kind of coming up. Let me just play catch up here. Yes, all the Mars things and quit my job. I'm really excited. Oh, so you did quit it? I hope that I'm in Ireland in November. According to some of the transits, because you're going to go through like Jupiter in your 12th, I do think you're going to be traveling, especially because it trines Saturn. But also there's going to be a retrograde that's going to go on at the end of the year in your 4th house. And I feel like that's about this reassessment. That's like, am I going to be making the move? No, you did not quit. No, you did not quit, but you will probably find by the time Saturn and Jupiter are in a trine that you may feel more inclined to be able to quit. You're going to have to get to about June or July. Once Saturn and Jupiter come out of a square, then I think it's going to be easier for you to kind of make that segue and make that change. And, the next 2 years, Saturn is going to be in Aries squaring your Venus. So you're going to go, well, I'm in this long distance relationship. I'm running a business that's more international, or I'm traveling a lot. Like I might as well make the jump. So long story short, probably anytime after June, you're looking at maybe being able to quit. And also like maybe make that the goal by the time you get to this full moon. Because I think with the trines to your Sun and Venus, I think you're going to be supported, right? School ends. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Definitely really tricky. I think the fixed signs are the ones who are really going to be feeling this the most, but also like the squares, it makes the wheel of the chart turn, Hope that's helpful. Chat is lit. Who else do we have here? What's up, CZ? Check back in this time for news regarding this. I want to know what might be in the works for me and Sean, who is ALS and is still half in a relationship with his ex and her 3 kids. Today he cried and told me his heart is split in 2 between her and me. I don't know what to do. Okay, let me add you here. From what I remember, he's a Scorpio rising, or he's got some kind of Scorpio stuff going on in his chart. So that could be part of it. I'll add you to my list. Thanks, Bree. Natalie, I have got you added, so I'll pull up your info as we get closer. What's up, Zach? All right, so good luck, Deanna. I hope everything's well with your partner and his daughter. You'll have to let me know what happens, and I'm hoping you're able to quit your job after this this next full moon when you complete this cycle. All right, so we've got La Miranda and then Ripples. Gemini rising, sun in Capricorn, moon in Pisces. La Miranda says, hey Candace, I noticed that natal Pluto is sitting right on my vertex and also squaring my natal Mercury. Please let me know the good, bad, and ugly about my chart. Thank you. P.S. I might not be here tonight since it's pretty late for me. No worries. All right, so let's, I added the vertex and the point of fortune just for you because I don't usually have that on here, but sometimes I do. All right, so we're looking at Pluto on your vertex squaring your natal Mercury. So where is the vertex? Right here. What? Pluto on your vertex. Well, I've got a different vertex than you do, obviously. Let's see. Well, that's kind of weird. It may calculate different in your software than my software. I don't know if you're here. Let me scroll down, see if you're here. I don't see you, but if you pop up, I'll say something. So, natal Pluto is sitting right on my vertex. Oh, natal Pluto, duh. And squaring your Mercury. Okay, I was like looking for transit Pluto. All right, so vertex Pluto at 14 degrees. It's in a square with her Mercury, which is kind of significant because Mercury is your chart ruler, but maybe this is just me. Like after observing the vertex in astrology for a very long time, I feel like squares are actually very powerful. So the vertex can be like an invitation and an opening to chance meetings and connections. It can be about people that you meet that help you grow. It can be weird serendipitous events that can kind of play out, especially when you see planets that square or conjunct them. So what's coming up here pretty soon with Mars coming into an opposition with obviously Mercury, it's going to bring up like philosophical discussions, education opportunities, learning opportunities, important convos, and it's going to square your vertex and it's going to square Pluto. That'll trigger it. Vertex in the 6th house conjunct Pluto means I think some really difficult encounters or situations that happen that is likely connected to people you work with. So the 6th house can be about coworkers, it can be about your actual office, it can also be about your schedule. It is at a 14, so it can mean that, you know, your relationship or issues or problems that you have with job security, maybe money related things at work. It can also be about food and things that you're like eating or consuming because it's at a Taurus degree. So do I think it's bad that you have vertex square Pluto, square Mercury? No, I don't. I think that I would be paying attention though to when planets are going over these degrees. So like for example, I was just saying like Mars, right? So when Mars comes into a square and an opposition, especially when the moon triggers that, so you might see that around May the 3rd. And then when Mars opposes your Mercury and then the moon goes over your vertex on the 11th, because it's going to make it the focal point of that square. And then obviously by transit, so like when you see down the road Pluto coming into a square with vertex, coming into a square with Pluto, you know, it might materialize as you being like, I'm learning something new, I'm getting out of my old job or my old routine, or I'm learning something new about health or about wellness. I've seen a lot of Gemini risings with Pluto and Scorpio in the 6th, and there's always like work drama. Like there's always issues with sexual harassment in the workplace, you're working in environments that are not healthy or they're not clean. There can be a lot of drama and scandals and secrets. And in your chart, you know, because the vertex is ruled by Pluto and Pluto is conjunct that, I think it's very significant. And then the co-ruler is Mars, and you've got Mars in the 11th. So it might mean that there are things that happen at work that are chance encounters that you have with people, or things that you see, or stuff that happens that puts you in a position of speaking out and like standing up for groups of people. And the square to Mercury means that it's about the principle. Like Mercury in the ninth house is like, this is not right, you know, this is wrong, or this is illegal, or morally this is not like ethical. It can also trigger lawsuits. And things connecting to you feeling like, you know, it pushes you to want to stand up for your legal rights. It might also mean that you go through a series of jobs that you're not crazy about and you don't like, or you don't like the circumstance revolving around who you're working with, where you're working with, and it pushes you into the ninth house where Mercury is at a 10. So it might push you to study law. It might push you to go back to school, get a certification or a training, you know, seek the advice of a mentor to help get you out of some of these like cycles that you keep dealing with. So I don't think it's bad. I mean, look, it even squares, the vertex and Pluto square your point of fortune, right? So it's also kind of pointing to Pluto in the vertex as being like, well, yes, there's going to be some uncomfortable situations that are going to happen at work, but what do you learn from the process? What does it teach you? Where does it continue to push you to evolve, especially when it comes to your education? And I would be really watching when Mars is coming in for this square. So especially like around the third week of May, you'll see some stuff. And down the road, right, we're going to see like Mars go over those degrees later in the fall. So that might kind of kick something up as well. I'd be more concerned with Mercury square Pluto, to be honest with you. I mean, I feel like that definitely is like a very intense mind. So it looks like you're going to have, this is interesting. You're going to have Mars conjunct Pluto, and it's going to be right over the vertex, which isn't unusual. It happens every 2 years. But when it happens, Mercury is nearby. So something around mid-October will kind of kick up that you're going to see that's about maybe changing jobs, shifting something about your routine, your habits, and it might be that there are significant events. It can also be health related. So I don't know if I said that or not, but it can be like relating to, you know, whether or not a health issue kind of pops up or crops up, especially during the retrograde, that gets you reevaluating or reassessing something about your habits and your routine, right? So in my mind, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think that you just want to watch for drama in the workplace and money stuff. I'd be more focused on what Mercury square Pluto represents, and that could literally mean if you're not making time to energetically cleanse your workspace, if you're not making time to focus on your emotional, your mental health, if you're not taking time to, you know, really look at your schedule and make time for higher education, make time for traveling, it can result as you having like some kind of like crisis at work or some kind of illness. Overthinking, right? And like some kind of like manipulation tactics maybe that are going on in the workplace, and that it puts you in a position of having to tap into your Mercury in the ninth and, you know, seek legal support or seeking a new spiritual kind of practice. And maybe that's also tied into some of your health and wellness stuff as well, right? Anyway, hopefully that's helpful in kind of answering that for you. Let's see, who else do we have here? We've got Ripples, and then Emma, and then Natalie. What's up, Ripples? I got your email here. Capricorn rising, sun in Pisces, and the moon is in Gemini. So she says, hey Candace, I'm currently living and working in Guadalajara since the 7th of April, but I haven't found housing that fully meets my needs yet. How can I use this new moon to support my housing stability goals? All right, good question. So good thing is you have got a new moon. You've got actually two new moons. So we're gonna look at the first one. The first one is very close to your IC, which is obviously the most southern part of your natal chart. So this is the IC, also known as the 4th house cusp, which deals with lodging, home, roots, stability, security. So I think that with this new moon coming in close, it can mean that it's setting the stage for you to be able to start looking. If I know you're already looking, but maybe it's like you're looking in new areas. The third house can represent short distance travel. Maybe you're going for a walk around the neighborhood you're in. Maybe you're looking at neighboring cities. And obviously it's a 7, so it might also mean that you're talking to people locally nearby, or you're on like local, you know, social media apps. Maybe you are looking for like signs and other things and paying attention to where there might be like open houses. Obviously, this is not the friendliest of new moons, okay, because of the square. So even though you're a Capricorn rising, you're a late Capricorn rising. So not only does the new moon square Pluto, where you're like, I'm in a bit of a crunch, like I need to, you know, figure out where I'm moving to, third house, but it's also squaring Mars in your 7th house, which means you can feel like there is a bit of a rush, or you can feel like the changes that you're trying to make with your living situation are not feeling stable yet, is impacting your ability to connect with other people, right? Or to work well with other people. Like if you have a client-based business, it's like, okay, I have to deal with this situation first before I can really be prioritizing working with others, dating, you know, that kind of stuff. And then on top of that, it's also opposing Uranus in your natal 10th house. So when you put it all together, I guess technically it's your 9th. When I put it all together, it may indicate that this is a 6-month period where you're gonna go, okay, I'm trying to make it work here. I'm gonna see if I can make it work here. If not, you know, am I gonna do a little bit of like ping pong and back and forth between now and the fall of 2025. Moving and movement is more going to be connected to your 3rd house. So I think about how pretty soon over the next month, Venus is going to be coming into your 3rd house, whole sign 4th for your Capricorn rising. Saturn's going to be coming into Aries. You know, Neptune is already there. So we need to see something positive going on with Venus. So at least by the time you get to like May 7th on, Venus is going to start sextiling Pluto, which basically means there could be a new home opportunity. Might mean you're looking in a new area. It might mean there's like a woman that helps you. And it's going to also potentially work well with your financial situation, because Pluto is in your whole sign 2nd house. So it might be like, oh, I found something. There's a new area. There's a new place I can go to. Great. And when those two sextile, it's setting the stage for something new being underway. The other thing that you're going to want to watch for is that at the end of May, Saturn is coming into Aries. So for all of my Capricorn and Capricorn risings, this is kind of a big deal because your chart ruler is on the move. So it's moving into your whole sign 4th house of home. However, it's still in your 2nd house Placidus, which means you're moving, but you're going to have to be willing to make some sacrifices. Now, what are those sacrifices? Obviously, Aries is personal. It can mean that you're like, you know what? I don't want to spend a ton of money. I'm willing to get something smaller. It could also mean that you're being more cautious and conservative with the financial situation. And you don't want to be buying a lot of furniture. You don't want to be doing anything that's going to be, you know, breaking the budget. But it also might mean there are some things that are worth splurging on. What I like is the next new moon. So I know that this is still a month away. You know, you can set the stage for, you know, finding something now, but right around this next new moon, which is going to be around the end of May, on the 26th is what it looks like, you will have a new moon that is actually in your 4th house. And it's going to be conjunct Mercury, and it's going to be trine Pluto on your ascendant. My thought is that it is still possible that it's going to take up to about another month before you get situated. But because you're going to have Venus in the whole sign 4th, because you're going to have trines to Pluto, I do feel like you're going to get a little bit more stable in the living situation. And you want to do something while the new moon in Taurus is taking place where you're like, I just need something that's going to be affordable. I need something that is just going to give me stability and security. It is at a 7, so that can mean that you find somebody who is saying, hey, you know, I need somebody to watch my place for, you know, X amount of weeks or months. Maybe you do like an exchange situation where somebody's going to the States and you're staying there. Maybe it's going to be somebody who says, hey, you know, my roommate just moved out, or, you know, I just got done remodeling a back house. It may involve another person beyond just talking to a landlord. I think it's going to be somebody who
Check, check. Check, check. All right, I have both of them. So put them both on. That we have backup now.
Okay, hold on 1 second. There we go. Check, check. Sound is now back on. That's weird. I don't think that's ever happened before. Well, you know, just Mercury tings. All right, well, back to Ripples. Ripples, if you're still here, I apologize for the delay. But basically, I would be trying to scout the neighborhood. I would use both this new moon and the next new moon, especially with the next one trine Pluto. I feel like it's very likely by the end of the month you're going to get into something. With a 7, look for people who are also willing to, rent separate but still joint spaces, or somebody who's looking to do like a homestay. And probably right around the time Saturn is coming into Aries, just being a Capricorn rising, you're going to see that things are going to kind of stabilize with your home and your living situation. And finally, Saturn will be off of your Venus. So that's another thing that makes me wonder in the 3rd house if it's like holding out and waiting for the right thing materializes as a sudden chance opportunity for something to pop up that will give you some spontaneous move. And you'll find something that's going to be close to like either a bank, really good food, like a garden, or a property that's going to have a lot of like lush vegetation. And I hope you find it. So something that always worked for me when I was like kind of in like a sticky, weird moving situation like this is like sit down, make a list specifically of what you want, and like do even a very simple sketch or drawing of what you're envisioning, what you're moving into, because this can be a very powerful manifestation moon to help kind of blast out of some kind of crisis and help bring in the right people who can kind of help you make this jump into this new living situation. So hopefully that's helpful. All right, moving on. We've got, let's see, Emma, Natalie, and then CZ. And those of you guys who are tuning in, if you guys want to get a reading, the QR code is right here. You can scan it. Make sure in the memo box you send your birth, time, and location information and one specific question about what's going on with your chart. What's up? Can anybody confirm they see my message? Yes, we can see your message. The volume was off, but now it's back. All right. I bought PayPal before the live. Can you let me know when I will be? Carly, it's going to be a while because you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people ahead of you. So it's going to be a minute. All right. So let's take the next person. We've got Emma. And I think Emma also might have said she may have to be back. So let's take a look. Capricorn rising, sun in Pisces, moon in Scorpio. Let's see what Emma says. Emma says, hey Candace, hope you're feeling better. I'd like to get my monthly reading. How can I tap into these new moon energies for my highest good? Thank you very much. I'm not sure if I'll be able to make the live. All right, well, let's take a look. We'll see you soon, Carly. All right, so we've got this new moon coming in for you, obviously in Taurus. And as a Capricorn rising, it's going to be in your 5th house. Well, that's a nice place to have a new moon. So what do I like about this? Well, a couple things. One is it's in a trine to your ascendant. So when you see Earth trines, this is basically setting the stage for practical changes, financial changes, health changes, stability. So it's playing nicely with that. And also as a Venus in Pisces, and this is a chart, obviously, or a new moon that's ruled by Pisces, it is sextiling your Venus. So when we have a new moon in the 5th house, we set intentions revolving around matters of the heart. So what do we love? What are we creating? This could be hobbies. This could be connected to romantic partners. This could also be just anything that brings you joy. And Taurus is something we have to build. And this is a new moon that's at a 7. So your relationship to a romantic partner, your relationship to a younger person, your relationship to your inner child, all of that stuff is getting highlighted in your chart. Sextiles to Venus, trines to the ascendant, and sextile to your 7th house is a really great relationship manifestation moon, if that's what you want to use it for, especially because the moon rules your 7th house of relationships. Where it's tricky is that it is in opposition to your natal moon and your natal Uranus. So in the 11th house, it's like what your friends are doing, what your networks, your communities are doing, what other people are melting down over or freaking out about, right? You're like, I want to do something different, a little bit more calm, a little bit more pleasant. I think any like craft hobby, maybe doing some creative cooking, some gardening, like these things can be really great ways to utilize this new moon. And I also think that the opposition to your moon means if you're trying to meet somebody or if you're trying to collect with like-minded people, you're better off going in the direction of participating in things that you enjoy doing. Right? Like not going out to the places your friends always want to go, not going out and doing the same end all be all kind of stuff that they are interested in. Like the 5th house says, what do you enjoy? And I think with the trine to the ascendant, it could also be very practical things. Like Taurus could be, new moon here could be great for learning about investing. It could also be really great for anything connecting to, like I said, gardening or cooking. And stuff that's going to make you feel like more so committed to a long-term goal or vision, basically. Not the easiest moon, also with squares to Pluto, so there's a lot of going, well, okay, I want to have fun, or, you know, I want to invest, or I want to take a chance, or I want to gamble on something, but I don't want to spend too much money, right, square to Pluto. And you're not letting, you know, whether or not you're accepted by a group of people, whether or not you're spending a lot of money, whether or not you're in a relationship to impact your own personal self-esteem. I think that's the square to Pluto in the 2nd house. And then on the flip side, it's also squaring Mars in your 8th. So for some Capricorn risings, it's going to materialize as, well, I want to start this new business, but I don't want to spend a ton of money, or I don't want to kind of like, dig too far into my savings, or I want to invest, but I want to do it in a way that's going to be kind of stable and, not doing too much at one time. The other way that I could look at this is that this can be about your relationship to a person kind of unfolding and becoming more about intimacy and vulnerability, and talking about what can be some really sensitive or kind of like difficult subjects. So it could be like credit score, debt, loans, money, fear, that kind of stuff. And really the willingness to go into that, be willing to talk about that stuff, can actually bring you more like togetherness, right? Somebody's saying no sound. So if you guys cannot hear me, please let me know. So that way I know that you can't hear me. Is there anything else? Probably with the moon, the new moon in opposition to Uranus also tells me that there's going to be a chance opportunity maybe to get some news or insight from a group of people that's going to influence or kind of help you when it comes to making an investment or a hobby. The moon in opposition to the moon also does tell me that, some of the changes that you're making socially, other people might be like a little prickly about it. So don't take it personally. And then obviously this will become a full moon down the road. And I believe this full moon in 6 months' time is right on your south node. I think it's like right around there. There it is. Yeah, it's right on your south node. So that's pretty significant because the south node is going to represent what's kind of karmically at play or what's kind of happened in the past. And when this happens, the moon and Venus are going to be conjunct one another. So that could actually mean that it materializes as, oh, now I'm a part of a group or a collective, or, now I'm getting more recognition at work. It's in your whole sign 10th house. Maybe it means that you're introducing somebody that you're kind of dating to your friends, or there is like this major shift that's happening revolving around your relationship goals. Also, squaring Jupiter in your 7th. So this is still going to be in harmony with your ascendant. This can be some kind of fulfillment of, a new hobby or a new creative project or something that brings you joy, even a relationship or, a younger person. That's going to kind of have like a full circle moment. And with the sun on your north node, the moon on your south node, these are some very potent places to have planets in a lunation. It's basically saying that, for you to have personal joy and fulfillment, you're going to have to kind of take whatever your doing, whatever you're creating, whoever you're working with, whoever you're collaborating with, and you have to go and share that with other people. So this is like a full circle moment that you're going to have in about 6 months' time. Anyway, I hope that that's helpful and kind of giving you some insight, but what a fun new moon that you're going to have. It looks like you're taking some kind of a chance on something. So I'm wondering, like, what is it? All right, so we have got Natalie and then CZ. And let me see if I have Natalie. I think I have Natalie in here. I got to go back and look at her birthday really quick. Natalie. Mm-mm-mm-mm. 9/18/88. There we go. Pisces rising, sun in Virgo, moon in Sag. When is a good time to start our bouncy house castle business? I love that. I love that you're asking me that as you have been going back and forth with the Mars retrograde in opposition to Pluto. So are you starting this business with a friend? I'm just wondering. I don't know who you're doing it with, but so personal businesses and stuff is going to very much be like the 5th house. So Mars has been retrograde there. It's been slowing some stuff down. Obviously Mercury and Venus retrograde. Oh, baby daddy. Okay, cool. So let's see. Kids are definitely the 5th house. That's ruled by the moon. You have got Mars that's coming into a trine with your moon here pretty soon. Do you guys already have all of the products and everything, or is it going to take a little bit more time? That's what I'm wondering. Because if you're like, we're good to go, just tell me when, then I will definitely give you a date. Yeah, you're ready. Okay. So we have got Mars is coming into a trine with your moon, which is about creative business, and also in the 10th house business. It is starting to come into a sextile with Mercury, which is good for clients. And we've got the sun coming into conjunction with your Jupiter, which is going to trine Pluto. So putting it all together, I would advise you maybe to do this after the new moon in Gemini. I just have to organize the insurance. Okay. So the new moon is technically going to be right on top of your Jupiter at a 6. And Jupiter rules your career. And this is a home or family business. This is trining Pluto, which means it's going to help provide major transformative fun, or some kind of group experience. And this is also going to have Mercury conjunct your Jupiter, clients, stuff that you're doing also locally. Would also be a good time to have the social media ready to go, have the website ready to go, and I would be launching then. You can, if you want to incorporate or do whatever you have to do before that, you can. But this is a time where I would be like, okay, we're sending out newsletters, we're putting out flyers, we're going to be paying for some ads on social media, because you're going to get a lot of traction with some of these trines. And then the second best time that I would say, if you don't want to do it around, the 26th, although I think that's a really good time to do it, is you could do this down the road when Jupiter goes into Cancer, and you start seeing Jupiter coming in for a trine with Pluto in your natal chart. So I would say moon, that's going to be a full moon for you. I don't like Mars conjunct the south node. We've got a new moon in your 5th house, trine your moon, trine your midheaven, but Mercury is retrograde over your Venus. So you're looking at the next window of opportunity is not going to be until closer to August. I still think in August you're going to refine something. So I don't know what it is. I don't know if there's going to be oh, we have to make some changes with our scheduling, or we're having to service some of the, products that we have, or we have to hire somebody. So that's really pushing this back quite a bit.
And then the next option would basically be to do something when right after the new moon in Virgo. This is going to be ruled by Mercury. Mercury's in Leo. So you're looking at, if you don't do it with the date that I gave you, you're looking at having to do this probably closer to the end of August. And I don't want the moon near the south node either. So you could do something around the end of August, but I don't think the astrology is as good, to be honest with you. That's just my opinion. I would do it around the new moon in Gemini. Okay. Come back and let me know what this thing is that changes. Hopefully you guys are busy and you have to like hire someone. Or maybe you're collaborating and connecting with other people, other creatives. That retrograde in your 5th house means that you're going to be offering like new themes. So I wonder if you're like, oh, we have jumpy house stuff and we're doing that and that's fun. But maybe you're going to invest in other themed like stuff. So maybe it's going to be like, well, we've got other things you can rent. That's going to be, you know, stands, or it's going to be stuff that's going to be more decoration, right? We want to buy other things. So that's when you're going to start doing that, is in August. So launch the business, start doing that, see how it's going with the money, see whether or not you guys can justify actually making other investments. And you'll have another opportunity to make investments as you kind of get into the fall. And for sure, you will see growth in your career venture. If you launch it around that time, you'll see growth, especially by the fall when Saturn's trining Jupiter. You're going to be like, oh my God, this is great. We're having so much fun doing this like kid business. And you'll reassess a little bit more about who exactly your target people are going to be and all that stuff. And maybe you'll try to do some holiday things in December. But yeah, new moon in Gemini. Okay. Good luck. What an exciting business with Jupiter in your Jupiter in your 5th house. You're doing a kids business. I love that. We've got CZ. What's up, CZ? We're following the saga. It continues. It's Camille, right? I'm just trying to make sure that I've got the right chart. Oh no, it broke down. Oh, so you did have to detail it. Oh no, not the kind of detail I thought, but okay, well you had to detail it either way. Bummer. So CZ, can you just confirm it? For some reason I feel like your first name is Camille. Okay, just wanted to make sure. And then the other person was like Sean, right? Yeah, he was the Scorpio rising. I remember saying to you, I was like, okay, you need to be prepared, because when he goes through this Mercury Venus retrograde nonsense, it was going to be about whether or not he's ready. Is he ready to open up? You know, like, what is he hiding from? Like, and now you're hearing from him that there's this entanglement with, you know, his ex and his kids. Well, Venus represents the person who he was with, and the retrograde's in the 5th house. I'm not passing judgment, but it's very obvious there is some kind of entanglement that's like, well, the partner's kind of coming back around, and then the kids are involved, and like, you know, he's a Scorpio rising, so there's gonna be a lot of feelings there. Also, he's got Venus in Gemini, and Jupiter is hovering around his Venus at a 20. So it means, like, to be honest with you, my interpretation is like both relationships cannot coexist at the same time. Usually he can have that, where he can, you know, maybe be in a relationship and then his partner strays, or, you know, he's in a relationship and he meets somebody and then he moves on. Like Venus, especially in the 8th house, it doesn't really matter the sign, but especially in the 8th house, very common. There's lots of crisis and drama and unexpected things that happen when Venus is there. And at a 20, it means that they can't be at the same time, right? Especially because Saturn is squaring. So he's feeling torn because he's like, well, if I start this new relationship, it's cutting off one side of, you know, me, and I'm moving in the future, but like, what am I leaving behind? And he's been going through that kind of emotional whirlwind basically for like the last couple of weeks. Anyway, bummer. The thing that I was looking at for your chart is you are experiencing all of these retrogrades also simultaneously through your whole sign 5th house. So it's about matters of the heart, back and forth with a relationship. It has been directly over your Mercury at a 5, which means your partner has been reevaluating and reassessing the relationship and the future of the relationship, also like the involvement of the children. And Saturn's finally leaving your sun. That's great. You know, Jupiter is just coming out of a square with your sun. So there's like a lot of things changing. And I think Saturn and like the retrogrades in the 4th house is like a very heavy feeling, and a feeling of being like, okay, I've been at home alone going through this. Like, what is going to happen next? So you're going to want to watch when, or I'm curious what conversations you had when Mercury was around your natal Mercury. So this was around April 22nd. And then you're going to have Venus come up on your Mercury, which rules your 7th house, which could be you guys having conversations about this around May 8th. And then Venus is going to come out of shadow, okay? And that's going to be closer to around May 15th. Down the road, next year, when Saturn fully goes into Aries, Saturn is going to hit your Mercury, which rules relationships. That tells me that by then, if somebody is not out of the past, if somebody is not ready to fully move forward and like commit to you wholeheartedly and see how they can bridge the gaps in the life that they had, the life that they're building with you, and also their family, you're going to have a bit of a difficult time. And I'm just going to be honest with you, you know, before you spend a whole year kind of going back and forth with him, Saturn hitting Mercury is like you going, okay, well, now I'm ready to move in together. Now I'm ready for the next step. And like, there could be some resistance or there could be some issues. So I've told a lot of my clients and a lot of my followers, I'm like, 2025 in a nutshell is a snapshot of what's coming in 2026. And we're going to see some things, and we have through the eclipses and the retrogrades, that we don't like, right? Things that are scary. It's making us really reassess the path that we're on. So I would look at what he's saying to you, and I would look at him saying, well, I'm afraid to fully move forward. And I would kind of look at this and go, well, you don't get to have it both ways. Saturn squares Venus is saying the same thing. He has to be willing to kind of let go of the past. How this actually materializes, because I can tell you wholeheartedly that Jupiter in your 7th house may continue to bring you other relationship opportunities. Mercury conjunct Jupiter, which is going to happen in June, is also going to be a pretty significant tipping point because it's going to be at 29 degrees. And when we see other planets coming through your 7th house, relationships are going to kind of get lit up. But my fear is you spending an entire year planning a life with him. And then when you get to spring of 2026, Neptune's going to hit your Mercury, which means he might be like, oh, I changed my mind. Saturn's going to hit your Mercury, which means you're going to have a difficult time communicating and talking about the future. Like, it's important to kind of lay it out there and be like, no, you need to figure it out. And if you're unsure, you know, I don't know if I want to be with somebody who's unsure about me or doesn't know if they can actually move on, right? That's just my interpretation. Okay, let's make this make sense. This is your composite chart. This is the midpoint. So look what's happening right now. Uranus is coming through your sun, okay, and your Mercury, which means somebody's going through some kind of 6th house crisis, not knowing how to feel settled, not knowing how to kind of sort out old relationship stuff, because relationships die in the 6th house. I will go toe-to-toe with any astrologer on that. Every single time I get a composite chart, I'm like, there's got to be a Uranus transit in the 6th house or a Pluto transit to the 6th house Lord. Every single time. Well, it's doing that. And not only is Uranus going through the 6th house where it's disrupting the relationship, but it's on Chiron, which means somebody is like really having some kind of like crisis revolving around security and stability. Like they're wanting to stay with what's familiar. And then in this next year, Uranus isn't going to your 7th house. So it's about to shake shit up. So you'll see that in August, basically. And that in itself in a composite chart can be a pretty significant defining moment. Well, what's happening here when Uranus is in your 7th? Mercury is getting ready to come out of, it's coming out of its retrograde shadow. So I think it's going to be about maybe the lessons that you guys learn if you take a little bit of time away from each other over the summer, or you give him space to kind of think about it. Uranus will go back over your 7th house, which tells me there's going to be, even if he says, yes, I'm ready, with Uranus in your 7th, there's going to be some destabilization going on in the relationship where it's like you're communicating, you're not communicating, you're communicating, you're not communicating. And Scorpio risings, especially if they have Venus in the 8th house, are the worst. Leave them alone. Trust me. Leave them alone. Put him on ice. He will start to kind of wonder like where you went and why you're not talking to him, because as long as you're talking to him about his feelings and his processing things with him, he'll feel like you care. Stop talking to him. So then Uranus is going to go back into your 7th house. This is going to be in spring of next year, where I said shit is going to start getting weird. Look what's going to happen. Uranus and Mars are going to come together, and it's going to oppose your guys' composite Uranus at a 4. This literally means sometime between April and June of 2026, he would pull some kind of fast one on you and be like, I'm not ready to move in together. Ah. So, I mean, maybe that's not what you want. I don't know. But if you want that whole person and somebody who's dealt with the past, they're not afraid of moving forward, they're ready to close that chapter so they can be totally kind of committed and dedicated to you, I would say this is the year that you want to put that out there, so you're not waiting until you get next year just to have him be like, okay, I'm not ready. Let him know that you mean business. Also, that way you can make the most of your Jupiter transit. So if there's another person that comes in, you're not holding out for somebody who's not totally sure if they're ready to commit to you, right? I know this sounds kind of like harsh, but I would rather you know, because what I saw in the transits is now also coming through the composite chart. So it will literally come down to a back and forth situation about where you're living, or, you know, whether or not you guys are going to actually be moving forward together, and how his family or his kids might impact that decision in some way. Yeah, you got to shake him up. If he's got Venus in the 8th, if you cut him cold turkey for a little bit, you'll find that it's actually going to be a little bit easier to navigate. He has to kind of be like, oh, is she gone? Especially with Venus in opposition to Neptune. When he has some time to process it and think about it and realize, especially because his second significant partner or spouse is connected to the moon, when he breaks it off with the first partner and the other person's like, go and figure it out, and when you figure it out, come back to me, that's when he makes that separation, he'll be able to move into the next relationship. Sticky stuff. Hopefully that's helpful. All right, so we've got, that's all the level 3 people. Is there anybody else? Anybody? If you want to get a reading, you can scan the QR code, and it'll take you to my PayPal, and you can send the donation for $55. And also you have to put in your birth information and your one specific question. Let me do a check-in with the PayPal and see if we've got other people who have kind of popped in. And last call will be in 5 minutes. All right, so who do we have here? So Katie, you'll be up next. We've got Miranda and Tamara, Sabrina, Whitney, Carly, Laurel. Let's see, who else? Alda, Christina, Liliana, Janiki. We've got another Tamara, Kasha. Let's see, Sasha and Silk. What's up? If you guys hear your name, that means I've got you. Last call if you guys want to get in, because we're going to close that down. We got a bunch of people in here. That's what I get for screwing around. All right. So let's go ahead. We're going to start with Katie, and then Miranda, and Tamara V. Oh, Rome. I've got you on here too. Don't worry. I have got you on here. All right. So Katie, Rome, Miranda, Tamara. And we've got 2 Tamaras. So it's going to be Tamara V. Okay. Katie. Let's pull Katie's chart up. All right, Katie is May 15th, 98. Scorpio rising, sun in Taurus, and moon in Capricorn. She says, I'm going to Paris for a business conference in mid-May, and I realize that Mars will be trining my Venus near exact. Thoughts on this, especially after this new moon? Well, as a Scorpio rising and a Taurus sun, you always want to see Mars and Venus in harmony, right? Because that's going to kind of line things up and make things a little bit more pleasurable when it comes to relationships. It can be clients, it can be meetings, it could also be, people who can just support you in general. I'm looking forward to the Mars-Venus trine. I feel like that's finally like the goodness that we get in May after all the Mars-Pluto oppositions, and we're going to feel like things are going to ease up a little bit. So that trine is going to be felt right around like the 21st, 22nd. And what's cool is it's also happening right around the time of you finally getting your Venus return. So you had a delay with your Venus return because Venus turned retrograde right before your natal Venus, right around like 9 or 10 degrees. So that means that something was being held back before you were able to go and do 6th house stuff. So can love be found through work? Maybe. Can there be chance meetings with people at gyms or through seminars or, stuff kind of connected to, work? Absolutely. Especially if your 7th house Lord is in the 6th. So the fact that that's happening and you're finally receiving something, I think is actually good. It's going to be good for your career. It's also going to be good for potential relationships. It's also good for feeling like you can kind of help other people. Your last Venus return was about a year ago. You usually get it once a year. Well, everybody gets it once a year, unless you have a retrograde, like a Venus retrograde over your natal Venus. Venus stopped right at like 9 or 10 degrees. So it didn't come into conjunction with your Venus. So something was being kind of like held back, basically. Anyway, I'm looking at like the 22nd, okay? 22nd, 23rd. This is when the moon and Venus are going to trine Mars. And if you notice, the moon is about traveling. Venus is about relationships. Girl, if it's around that time that you're traveling and you meet somebody, or if you meet somebody just before that and then you're going back and forth with somebody, nice. But it's not just relationships. These are in work houses. So there's a lot of action revolving around, hey, you know what? I like this. I'm really focusing on getting organized, being productive, meeting people, kind of getting out and about, and feeling like there's some excitement revolving around something that you're working on and you're kind of building. Venus is also it's a little wide, but it's slightly in a trine to your Pluto as well. So it's good for, making money, but also look at your Pluto, 7 degrees, relationships, 2nd house, money and resources, and Sagittarius, travel. So this is triggering all of this. And I have known a number of Scorpio risings in my life, but also clients that have Venus in the 6th. Something about either working with their partner or through a job change, they end up meeting somebody. There's always some kind of connection there. And it'll happen very quickly. It's like right around the time you meet somebody, you have a job change. Or right around the time you have a job change or some kind of progress in your job, then you meet somebody. So to me, it looks great. I also like that you're starting to see coming into that, Venus is also sextiling Pluto. I mean, there's some good stuff happening here. You need to see a really strong Venus transit for a relationship to show up. So not only will you have this transit, but then you're also going to see shortly after this, then Venus will go into Taurus, where honestly it's going to perform a lot better. It's also going to be in your 7th house, and it will conjunct your Mars. So when that happens, the end of June is going to be another kind of like turning point. And what's fun is the South Node's about to hit your Juno. So when you go through this transit, there is like a lot of like reconnections or reevaluations of relationships. And sometimes you meet like past life partners during that transit, which obviously ruled by Mercury, and Mercury's coming into your 10th house. Okay, so next year, you'll see even more of this. When you have like Saturn on your Venus officially next year, that's going to be like a more kind of significant turning point for relationships. But the fact that you're going to be traveling for work when your ruler and your 7th house ruler is kind of linking up just after what's going to be a new moon in your 7th house, which is very close to your 7th house cusp, is also saying the same thing. So like, look at the new moon. It is the focal point, basically, of an intense T-square between Mars and the 10th house, where you're out in the world, meeting people, connecting, being kind of bold and dynamic, trying to pull you out of the house, Pluto in the 4th, and that's being brought on by new relationship opportunities, new people that you're going to meet. So it's obvious to me that over the next 6 months, there's going to be a real significant shift in your relationships, which will both impact your status, squares to the Mars transit in the 10th house, but also help clear out the past, maybe get you thinking about moving or relocating, that kind of stuff might happen as well. Partners are going to play a huge, huge, huge role in that. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Katie. Readings are now closed. And who is it that was asking if we got their Payment. Merina. Let's see. Is your PayPal under a different name? Because I'm not seeing Merina at all. So make sure that that's the name that it's under. Go and check your PayPal and then circle back and let me know. All right, we've got Romero. And I got your question. Let me plug you in here. Aries rising, sun in Virgo, moon in Virgo. Romero says, where is he? There we go. Astrology, love life, moving, work. What's going on? Tell me what's most important. Thank you. Well, my dude, probably the most important thing, considering you're an Aries rising, is the fact that this weekend, you're going to see a bit of like a showdown. So stay out of the bars, stay out of any conflict or any trouble, stay out of conflict with friends, lovers, spats, things like that. So you might want to think back to what was happening around New Year's. Think back to also what was happening around early November. I know you were kind of like in the midst of like moving and having some job change stuff, but Mars in the 5th house is about passion, romance, going out, socializing, connecting, dating. And when it opposes Pluto, it means, especially at a 3, there's going to be some intense words that are exchanged between you and other people, right? It also means that there could be somebody who's like a little jealous over the fact that, you know, you're looking good, feeling good, having fun, doing your own thing. And like you could experience somebody who's like a little bit of a hater. Pluto is going to represent what other people have. So people might feel like, wow, I wish I had the opportunity you have, or the, you know, the relationship you have, the job that you have. I wish I had the confidence that you have. Mars in the 5th house is about confidence. So somebody can kind of try to knock you off a little bit. If they're getting like, if they're getting jealous. Like something I've noticed a lot with this transit, just being an Aries moon, is like, I don't know what it is, but I've noticed like a slew of like nasty, like little comments. And it's like stupid stuff, like stuff that doesn't matter, but things that people will say hiding behind like troll accounts and other things. And it's like weird comments that are like meant to be jabs at me. But I feel like maybe it's just me, but like insecurity, especially during this transit, like the people who are trying to poke fun at people or make comments about their insecurities or their flaws, like those are the people that are the most insecure. So they're so insecure that they're going and trying to kind of like pick out flaws of other people. Anyway, that's what this reminds me of, where Mars in the 5th is like, I'm happy, I'm doing my thing, I'm having a good time, I'm feeling confident, I'm creating, I'm dating. And you're gonna have somebody that's gonna be like, oh, well, you're not all that. You know, somebody's gonna say something like that to try to kind of get your goat. Yeah, my roommate is trying to move in a month. So roommates are going to kind of stem more from 7th to the 4th. It could also be stuff going on with your moon. Now Mars is out of the 4th house. There's a new moon that's going to be coming in your 4th house next month. It's actually going to be closer to June, but I mean, we're kind of getting into May, so I say next month. And Jupiter coming into your 4th house can also mean that there's going to be a change going on at home. So others is more like Venus. So I'm kind of thinking like, you know, Venus coming into a square with the North and the South Node by the end of May. And then Jupiter kind of coming in with Mercury is definitely by mid-June. So sometime the end of May, mid-June, I think you're going to see an aspect there. Anyway, in terms of like the intense stuff, that's the Mars-Pluto transits. The other thing that's kind of going on in your chart is Saturn and Venus are actually trining your Mars, which you don't see it, but like actually maybe the Venus retrograde, the Mercury retrograde has kind of had you in like hermit mode where you're like, okay, I finally have a space where I feel stable. I can sleep more. I can meditate. I can chill out. Like I can just kind of take a step back and rest and recharge as it's been trining your Mars, and also making you feel like maybe a little bit more spiritual. Maybe a little bit more like you're realizing why some things have fallen apart or why you've had to kind of make some sacrifices to kind of get to where you are now. And with Jupiter in your 4th house, you might see an expansion of the home that you're living in. You might see that there are good things happening, but it might also bring you a new opportunity in about 2 months' time to move. So if a roommate's coming to stay with you or coming to like visit, I'm wondering like, are you guys talking about getting a new place? Is that something that you're going to kind of think about, you know, over the summertime? Obviously, the moon is going to be kind of connected to your fourth house, and Mars eventually down the road will be coming into Virgo, and it's going to hit your moon. So I could definitely see, especially around the end of June, when Mars is hitting this, that it's kind of mirroring some of the transits in your fourth house. That's like, okay, you know, yeah, we have to do a little bit of moving or organizing or shuffling things around, but somebody's moving in or we're moving into a new place. And also like work is going to be very, very busy as well. So there's definitely going to be a lot of like work grind and things going on, and maybe focused in kind of getting into like a more finely established health or fitness routine. Somebody with all this Virgo, that's got to be something that you're like really focused on, I would imagine. But you might feel like you're getting back into the swing of things. I think the other thing that I would be watching for is that Saturn is actually going to be going into your sign at the end of next month. So, you know, you've had Mercury retrograde over your ascendant, where it's been a lot about how you can communicate and express yourself. Venus retrograde on your ascendant, where you're reevaluating what you want in relationships and also your values and your personal style. And now you have Neptune that's there now, where you can feel like, man, I'm just either overwhelmed or I'm emotional, or I just kind of need some time alone, or I'm reworking something about my vision. And then Saturn's going to show up. And when Saturn shows up, there's going to be being more assertive, being more bold, more dynamic. You'll also probably focus on like, can be weightlifting or hiking. It can be some type of martial arts or self-defense. And also you're going to feel a lot more driven when it comes to your goals for your career. And you'll see that happening right at like the end of May. And both Saturn and Neptune will actually hang out there until about September. And then they'll go back into Pisces for a little bit. And then in 2026, they're going to fully come back into Aries, where maybe you feel like by then you're like, oh, I'm more independent. I don't need a roommate. I don't need to be dealing with people. You know, you're going to be grinding, focusing on kind of being a little bit more productive at work, or feeling like you have a better idea of where your career is going. All right, that's kind of the feeling that I get. He says, the roommate I live with now hates somebody trying to move in with someone else. So there you go. So yeah, I mean, somebody, whoever is around right now, like Pluto to me feels like an antagonist, you know? And it's also somebody, if Pluto's in the 11th house, it can represent their 5th house, where it's like they're having a difficult time finding joy. They're having issues in their love life. They're not really feeling like they're very fulfilled in some of their hobbies. And so what are they going to do? They're going to antagonize. So don't let them get your goat. Definitely be excited about an opportunity maybe to be moving in with somebody new or going into a new space. Really, what's beautiful is the new moon that's going to be in Cancer is right on your IC. So this would be around the 25th. So worst case scenario, like the end of June might be the actual segue in the move. But if you think back to what happened 12 years ago, so 2013, that year Jupiter went through your 4th house, and it was like an expansion of your home. Now what's interesting is it's also hitting your North Node. So it's about kind of getting into a space where you feel like it's more safe, secure, it might be more comfortable. But it is going to square Saturn and Neptune briefly. So you're going to go, okay, I'm moving into something bigger and, you know, something better. But it doesn't necessarily mean bigger is better. Saturn and Neptune is going to mean that you're like, I'm just happy having my own bedroom, you know, or I'm just happy being somewhere that's like a little bit further away from a city, or something that's going to give me like peace of mind. So there is expansion and contraction that's going to happen with this transit. But the aspects to your moon, I mean, I think work is going to continue. I think work is going to be very busy. Look at this new moon. 4 degrees on your IC with Jupiter, and look at Mars right on your moon. So you're definitely either in move mode at the end of June, or you've already moved and you're unpacking and you're organizing things and you're kind of getting everything in order. So you feel like, okay, now I'm somewhere where I can be grounded for a little bit. Work's good. Now I'm getting into a routine. So try not to let whatever's going on with some of the antagonistic roommates get your goat. You're gonna be out of there pretty soon. Be regular with a fitness and a meditation practice. I really recommend that. And if you can be by bodies of water or like lakes, or if you can be meditating with Saturn and Neptune in your sign, it's going to be really helpful, because you're going to be like, am I crazy? Like, are people like coming at me? Or, you know, you'll be very sensitive to other people's energies as well. Welcome. Thanks for tuning in. All right, so moving through this list here. Readings are now closed. We have got Miranda and Tamara, and then Sabrina, There we go. Let's look at Miranda. I think we have two Tamaras or Tamaras. I'm not sure, but we've got two of them. So you guys are gonna want to listen to which one's which. All right, so Miranda says, she says, all right. Hey Candace, I'm hoping you can give me some sort of direction for the rest of this year. I quit my job in hospitality after 15 years because of the hard labor, mistreatment, and low pay. I'm at a crossroads. I'm 31, single, like, okay, now what? I'm going on a trip to Greece on June 14th for a couple of weeks, but when I get back, I gotta start figuring out what's next. My birthday is on 10/8/93, Libra Sun, Scorpio Rising, Cancer Moon. I have Pluto, Mercury, Mars in my first house, Scorpio, North Node, second house, Sagittarius, Lilith in Aries, and descendant is Taurus. Empty houses in Pisces. All right. Well, let's take a look at your transits. So you got Scorpio rising, Sun in Libra, and your moon is in Cancer. You're welcome, Romero. All right, so here's the deal, right? So let's put the transits on there now. As a Scorpio rising, you know, you're in the second decan. So even though Mars and Pluto rule your chart, even though you're going to hear Mars has been retrograde in your 10th house, you're reassessing your career, it's opposing Pluto, so you also kind of feel like, you know, you got to get out of the house, or maybe you're going to uproot yourself. Like, it has been a theme. And you're going to see another Mercury retrograde that's going to happen this summer. So the end of July going into August is another time that you're going to want to watch, because you'll be reassessing where you're going with your career. Now, your career in a nutshell, because the 10th house for Scorpio rising is the sun, your sun is an important planet to be looking at. All right, so you got Sun in Libra, it's debilitated, it's in an opposite sign. So this basically means that there is a tendency to kind of like either 11th house, work for a company, maybe do things career-wise that are going to be based off of what other people want, helping other people, serving other people, helping other people, all that stuff. Your sun is relatively close to Jupiter, so that can be good for doing something creative or working with younger people or doing something that's more performance-based or artistic or working with youth. But if you look at your sun, it's also in a square to Uranus and Neptune, where it's like there's a lot of fluctuation and you're not sure what you want to do, or there hasn't been some consistent either education, because that's your whole sign third, or there has been a lot of like focusing on your goals, making it more about, okay, you know, how can I help other people, but not always thinking about what's going to be best in the long term for your finances. It also squares your moon. So it's a pretty complex cardinal square, where Sun and Jupiter tells me that if you work for the right company, if you find like the right purpose, if you find the right group, like with a chart like this, Libra's other people, I'd be like, it'd be really wonderful to kind of put together a bit of like a hodgepodge of all of the things that you have done in your experiences, and then take this to somebody who is going to do job placement. Like, go and talk to a recruiter. You know, like that would be great, because that's going to another person, somebody who runs a company, they work for a company, say, hey, you know, help me find this, somewhere where I'm going to be happy. Starting a business with a friend, working with friends. Obviously, Libra can be everything from consulting to styling to beauty-related things. And I feel like this is also about groups. Like, you would do very well, because you have a background in hospitality, going and working for like a larger luxury, you know, hotel or travel type company. You would do very well going and doing event planning. Particularly like weddings and like accommodations, and kind of getting people to and from, because Venus is in your 10th house and it's conjunct Juno. I don't know if that's anything you thought about. I don't know if that's what you're interested in, but that's another option. The other thing to think about is, over the next couple of years, you're going to be seeing, not only is Pluto going to start squaring your Mars, where you're going to be feeling like the pressure of like either needing to make a change with education or needing to make a change with your living situation. And you're also going to see Saturn coming through your whole sign, 6th house, opposing your sun. So it's going to mean that you're going to have to embark on like a new business or like a new venture. Saturn might mean that you're learning more about organizing, scheduling, and planning. It means that you might also do some work that's in hospitality, but maybe not in the same way that you've done it in the past. Aries is entrepreneurial. you know, and you'll have Saturn trine, let's see, Saturn is going to be coming into a sextile with your natal Saturn. So I'd be curious what kind of work that you've done specifically in hospitality. I like right now with you, you know, traveling. I think that's actually a really good move because your chart reads kind of similar to like a Sag rising, where after Mars has been retrograde in the 9th house for so long, you haven't been able to travel. Now you're getting out of the house, you're going somewhere, and you know, you can kind of get some sense of what direction you're going in. And definitely the heat gets kind of turned up a little bit by the time you're getting to about early June, because Mars is entering into your 10th house. So now it's time to be like, okay, got to get the show on the road, got to focus on working. And Mars will square Pluto, which means you're going through a change. It's also going to square transit Uranus, which means it can be some relationship changes, and it's opposing Saturn. So mid-June and the end of July, things get a little colorful. I do wonder if you're going to consider or contemplate moving, and if that may go hand in hand with making like a change with your career, or maybe you're looking for a job in like another area. And you will see Mars go through your 10th house and come into conjunction with Venus. Now, I'm not crazy about the Mars South Node conjunction, but it's possible that this could mean you're reconnecting with someone who you've worked with in the past in July, or you're being kind of like called back. Like you go to an interview and they're calling you back and they're saying, well, do you like want to like work with us now? And that's also happening while Mercury is retrograde. So longest I see this taking before you kind of get into something that's going to be a little bit more stable, end of July. But you're feeling the pressure as of the beginning of June. And I would say this, I'm going to say the same thing I said to other people during this live. 2025 is a precursor for what's coming next year. So when I was saying, oh, I see Saturn oppose your sun, and you know, you may have to go into work that you do temporarily or that you don't like, or you may have to go into a new branch of hospitality or service, or maybe you go into health or wellness. Maybe you start your own business. But with the South Node hitting Chiron, it's not going to be feasible for you to continue to work in the same industry that you've been working in if you don't feel good about it. And you need to be very careful. I'm going to touch wood as I say this, especially in the spring going into summer next year. When Saturn enters your 6th house of health, it'll start opposing your sun, which could keep you quite literally out of work because you're experiencing a health issue, and it's because you're still resisting making some kind of change. And then South Node's on your Chiron. So yeah, you don't go back into the same industry, you level up. And I would say you have probably the strongest period from about June until November to be going out, working, being employed. But the logical side of my brain is also looking at the South Node in the 10th house transit. It's not so much about work. North Node in the 4th house. Where am I wanting to live? Where am I kind of getting rooted? Where am I settling into? You might go home, visit family, or you might consider, like I said, relocating and getting into something that's going to be a little bit more efficient. So if you do need to take more time to either study, go to school, do some training, something like that, you may not be as focused on, you know, working permanently full time. Scorpios, I will tell you, because I've had Saturn and Neptune going through my 6th house for the last couple of years. It has not been fun, but it's very rewarding at the end of the transit. And you end up finding that you find your flow, you get into a routine, you actually really enjoy having a routine and, like, you know, being on time and scheduled and organized, like, it's nice. And it will come into a trine in 2026 with Jupiter going into your 10th house. Okay, so I'm coming into that now, and I have approached the Saturn-Neptune transit the last couple of years being like, I got to get my shit together, because if I don't, I'm not going to make the most of Jupiter expanding my career. So that's what I want you to be focused on doing this year, knowing that the kind of real glow up is actually going to be coming for you kind of second half of 2026 into 2027, which will materialize as making more money and also doing something that I think that you enjoy a little bit more, right? Anyway, I hope that that's helpful for you. Let's see, who else do we have here? So that was Miranda. So we've got Tamara, Sabrina, and Whitney. All right, so this is for Tamara V, who said she would probably not be here. Let's see. Hold on a second. Is that right? No, 427. Where is that? got a couple of you guys. There we go, Tamara V. All right. So she said she would not be here, but she wanted me to look at her solar return, and it looks like that's going to be in the Netherlands. All right, make sure I'm doing this right. All right, this was last year. Let's look at this next year. There we go. Okay. All right. Tamara, she says, signed up for your readings. Very curious to hear your thoughts on my solar return, which coincides with the new moon. So your birthday is 4/27/93, and your location is somewhere in the Netherlands that I cannot pronounce. So I apologize, but it looks like it's the right place. She says, I'm excited this year so far. It's been very good to me. My health is great. I'm going to the gym consistently again. I started the job of my dreams and very open to meeting someone new. And my home will get a makeover later this year. I love to hear what you see developing in the coming year. So this is for the Cosmos Wanderer. Well, I'm glad to hear all those good things have been happening for you. Obviously, a new moon on your birthday is pretty potent because it's almost like a fresh start. And you'll want to look at when a full moon is going to correspond in a couple of years' time. So you can go and look at future solar returns or when there's like a full moon that's going to be within about 48 hours of your birthday. The new moon will be at 7 degrees, okay? So it will. But what's interesting is your solar return is actually right before the moon shifts into Taurus, okay? So the solar return is based off of not just the location, but the exact degree of your sun. Well, your sun is exactly 7 degrees. So what's going to happen is the moon is in Aries, all right? So this is a dark moon phase. So I don't think it's going to be all that different than new moon. It might feel like there is still some flushing out that's kind of going on. And it's a Capricorn rising chart, obviously with the sun in Taurus and the moon is in Aries. So what's going to be most important about this is, yes, we look at the sun and its aspects, but the ruler is Saturn. And you have Saturn and the North Node and Venus in the second house. I know the houses look kind of weird. They look kind of skewed. That's because of the location where you're having your birthday. But that's a pretty hefty stellium in the second house. So right off the bat, with the North Node, Saturn, Venus being there, it means that you're investing into quality things, right? Especially with the South Node being in the 8th house. Like there is a sense of going, well, you know, whether it's myself, whether it's my beauty routine, if it's my home, if it's going to be, you know, some new personal style, really knowing your worth and investing in things that are going to last the test of time is very Saturn, North Node, Venus in the second. So self-esteem stuff, money stuff, resources, these are all going to be big themes. Now, according to this chart, Saturn is not only conjunct the North Node, but it's also conjunct Venus. And Venus is your 4th house, your home. So yeah, you're investing a lot of money into designing new materials, renovating, creating this spontaneous shift in your home base. So that's actually coming up in your chart. So that's going to definitely happen. This is all ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter is in the 5th house. So it is also saying there is room and opportunity for new relationships, for meeting people. Gemini could be more than one person. It could be people that you meet when you least expect it. You might meet them through Gemini places, so like libraries, bookshops, coffee shops. You could also be meeting people through entertainment, anything where there's going to be live performances and that kind of stuff. And probably the most intense thing I would say about this chart, because there's a few, but probably the most intense thing is the fact that you're having your birthday right around the time of the Mars-Pluto opposition. I mean, it's almost exact. So Pluto in the 1st house is going to represent this transformation of the self, right? So your personal power, your identity. And Pluto is connected to your 10th house of career. So it tells me that your mind is very much on changing the way you think, changing the way you communicate, maybe reevaluating your purpose out in the world. And Pluto is connected to your career, but also to Juno. Juno's on the midheaven. So this could be a year where you're like, I've made up my mind. I'm meeting my partner this year. You know, I want a committed relationship. I want to settle down. And that might be part of what happens. However, What's tricky is Pluto in the first house is very aware of their personal power. They also might resist change because it's in a fixed sign. And Mars in the 7th house definitely makes relationships action-oriented and very dynamic. But it can also bring people in very quickly. It could bring some kind of conflict. It could bring some tension. And usually with your solar return, like the days surrounding the solar return, I would say about a week around your birthday, you'll see something happen. So this is a lot easier to have if you're single than it is to have if you're in a committed relationship. Because if I saw this as a committed relationship chart, I would be like, ooh, you know, there's definitely going to be some squabbles and some conflict where, you know, somebody is going to be pressing you to do things and you're going to be like, I'm not ready yet. You know, don't rush me. Well, what is that? Mars is connecting to, you know, communication, but from a whole sign standpoint, it's family. So it might mean you're airing stuff up with your family. Maybe you're going back and forth with contractors on your home. Maybe you meet somebody and they're like, well, I want to move in together. And you're like, I'm renovating my house, like kick rocks, you know, like you want the relationship, but you don't want to rush into it that quickly. I think the positive in this is that it can mean that there is a sense of you kind of standing up for yourself. And so I've seen this for a lot of Aquarius risings who are going through the opposition. There's a lot of people being dramatic and trying to get their goat and like trying to get reactions out of them. And I keep telling them, like, you know, be an actor, not a reactor. Like just because somebody else is going through some crisis or they want to fight, like let them fight with themselves. Like don't go and fight other people's battles. Take a step back. That's part of the Pluto transit that you're going to be experiencing in your first house. And then finally, this is all squaring the sun. So the best way to actually, I think, bring in some kind of action in relationships and also go through a personal change is shifting something about your values, what you do or do not want in relationships, what you're investing your time or your energy into, including people. And it's squaring the sun at a 7. So a new relationship to your home, a new relationship to your living situation. Maybe you approach this whole like renovating your home and your home getting a glow up from the perspective of, oh, I would like this to be the home I share with my partner. Or you might look at it from a territorial standpoint with the Pluto square and go, this is my space. I don't want anybody in it. You know, or I'm not going to let somebody tell me what I should or should not hang on the walls or what carpet I should pick, or, you know, they're not going to be moving into my place. So you're going to feel extreme one way or the other. But if you're open and you're optimistic to redefining the space, I would be like, go into your closet and empty a drawer for a future partner. Make sure there's room for them to have a jacket in a closet, you know, or shoes on a shoe rack. Maybe clear out a bedside drawer, you know, create that new intention where you're like, I'm bringing somebody new into my life. And, you know, change can be difficult with some of these oppositions and squares, but I feel like the relationship you have with your home and creating that space is setting the stage for how you're evolving and what relationships you're ultimately going to be bringing in. So hopefully that's helpful for you. Also, one other thing, Moon Chiron stuff, ouch. A lot of it can be like communication of like needing to be open and honest with people about what you need emotionally, especially on the home front. And there can be stuff where you're working through issues with like female relatives, so like sisters, aunts, mother figures, grandmas, like that kind of stuff. But emotional healing is definitely going to be a theme in this next year. All right, so pay attention to what happens during those transits. All right, let's see, who else do we have? Let me log back into my PayPal. It's always like so fussy. If it's not PayPal, it's like something else. All right, who do we have next? We've got Sabrina, Whitney, and then Carly. Carly, are you back from dinner yet? What did you have for dinner? I'm so nosy. I'm just like, what snacks are you having? All right, so let's pull up. There we go, Sabrina. And I saw Sabrina's comment. I meant to say something earlier. Sabrina said, I don't really feel like my question makes sense anymore. Do you want to refine your question? Do you want me to refund you? Just let me know, because I want to make sure that I can answer whatever question you have. I didn't think it was a silly question at all. It made sense to me. But I'm a chronic overthinker, so it would not make sense to me. I think the question works. Okay. So we've got Sabrina here, December 14th, 1996. So we've got Pisces rising, Moon in Aquarius, Sun in Sag. Sabrina says, I'm a first-generation law student about to finish my first year of the program. However, I've been teaching myself astrology since 2020, currently taking certification course. I find that I'm not focusing on school and instead often thinking about astrology. Recently, I've been considering starting my own astrology business. My question is, what should I focus on this summer in terms of career to unlock potential success? I'm currently in New York City. I was born in Tucson too. That's where I was born and raised. All right, so a couple things. Number one is when I look at a natal chart, I can see that obviously certain things are going to happen over time, right? So at certain ages, certain things unlock. 33 is a big year for your career because that's when everything kind of comes full circle. You feel like you're kind of really, maturing and figuring out what your purpose is out in the world. Another one is when you're 29, because that's when you're going through a 6th house year and it's a lot about work and responsibility and service and scheduling. So there's certain times that things are going to work and certain times that things are not going to work. And one thing I'm going to tell you is you're in a very prominent period right now. So you should know if you're studying astrology that you're coming up on your Saturn's return. So Saturn in the 1st house means becoming self-sustainable, figuring out your vision, what you want. Obviously, Saturn deals with the 12th house and it's the ruler of your moon. So it's going to be obviously this love that you have for astrology, but also at 0 degrees, there's this sense of being like, can I make money doing this? Should I build it? Is it something that I do behind the scenes? Like that kind of stuff is going to be things that you're going to think about. I never tell people what they should or should not do for a living because I feel like that's something that's always rubbed me the wrong way. So I try not to do it with other people. I can tell you what you're good at. And when I look at your work, I look at the 10th house of career, both by sign and degree, and I also look at the 6th house. So one thing that's interesting is that the 6th house ruler is in the 10th house. 10th house sons, obviously, they want to manage something, they want to run a business, they're very reliable, they're diligent, they care a lot about their reputation, they could get a lot of recognition for the work that they do. 6th house deals with like litigation. It could deal with doing, like contractual stuff for creatives and entertainers, sure. But, Sun in Sagittarius in the 10th house, that's not unusual to see that these are people who want to go in the direction of working for the law in one way or another. I've seen people who are sheriffs that have that. I've seen lawyers. I've seen judges. But it does make sense that part of your process or part of your career is going in the direction of law. I'd be curious if that's what you really want to do still, if you're going to stick it out or not. Your midheaven is at a 19, so it's definitely good for working with others, whether that's having clients as an astrologer or having clients as a lawyer, that you want a client-based business. And 23 is definitely an astrology degree. So it deals with Aquarius. So it's about the future prediction, in the case of Sag, what you're learning, what you're teaching people, right? Teaching also through kind of stories. And this is all ruled by Jupiter. You've got Jupiter in Capricorn. So Jupiter is in its fallen position, but still it's in the 11th house. So like, look, if you decide to go to school and become an attorney, you're going to get a lot of recognition for what you do. I think you would be very good at it. That doesn't necessarily mean that's what you should do. I feel like you have time because you're going through, your Saturn return next year. While you're in your 6th house year, I feel like this is about buckling down and sticking with a routine and sticking with a schedule. So there's definitely this sense of, as you go through, Mars in your 6th house, routine and habits, maybe making sure that you have time to have fun and you can still do your astrology stuff or date or do things with your friends. But at the end of the day, you're prioritizing your goals, which is going to be about Sagittarius, school and studying, like anything like that. Next year, you'll go into your, and when I say next year, next year it's going to be you going into your 7th house year. So there's going to be more of this focus on, okay, well, relationships, clients, like working with people. You may start kind of getting your first experience also and like what it feels like to be in like a courtroom. Like part of your chart really makes me feel like you will continue to keep going down the path of law. But you're also talking to somebody who decided to like completely segue from what I was studying, what I was doing in school, and like completely ditch my career because I was like, I want to be an astrologer. And I kept my full-time job for a year and then was like, I'm going to make it work. And then after a year, launched my business. And that was like 14 years ago now. I mean, so, I'm never going to tell somebody you can't do it. But your biggest challenge, I think, is going to be maintaining a schedule where you can do both. And if you look at your chart, you're a little torn with your Sun square Mars, where you're like, there are things that I want to go out and do. And like Mars North Node in the 7th house is great for being an attorney. Like you will tell somebody what's up in a courtroom. Like that's a really great placement. I feel like also you'll be able to help people and you'll be able to inspire people. And you could do that through being a lawyer, through being an astrologer. But you'll want to look at your progressions and you'll want to look at other things and how that's evolving over time. So my thought is probably, 30 to 31, you're going to see more in the direction of figuring out what you're going to be doing work-wise. I never tell somebody they can or cannot become an astrologer. It's kind of like drawing. Some people are like Michelangelo and other people draw stick figures, right? So everybody can understand astrology at some level. But you have to have certain signatures to be like, oh, I'm doing astrology for a living. The heavy 11th house presence is usually what I find, which you have. Your 10th house ruler is in the 11th house. Granted, it's in a debilitated sign, but it's in the 11th house and it's conjunct Neptune. So you're like, oh, I want to like be a part of, helping future generations. You need to have also a very strong Aquarius signature, a North Node, a moon, a sun in an Aquarius degree. Well, you got an Aquarius moon. But it looks like a lot of your astrological musings and interests is something that has been more a hobby and things that you have been using more behind the scenes. People haven't really seen it. So if you do go the path of doing, astrology work, you're going to want to join groups, associations, join clubs, start them, collaborate with other people. Like it's not going to be something that you're going to do alone, okay? And like the more that you learn about the astrology community, you're going to see we're very weird. Some of us really like going to the conferences and hanging out with the old dudes with ponytails who are assholes and they care about all the, attention that they're getting. Other people don't care. Other people just want to create their content. They want to put it out there and they want to write books or they want to create courses or they want to lecture and they want to do something more independent. You have the placement of somebody because you want the recognition, because you want that involvement in the community. You will have to be a little bit more out there. So you will have to, go and do your networking and your associations and stuff with other people. But hey, you definitely have the placements of somebody who can do it. I think that being in your Saturn return this year is really interesting because it's with Saturn and Neptune. So you're kind of looking at, well, what are my dreams and can I make them real? And the dispositor of your Saturn is Mars, and you've got Mars in the 7th, which means actually you would really benefit from talking to an astrologer, working with an astrologer, right? Somebody who can kind of help you figure out, is this a good career path for you? If so, how do you do it? When's the best way to launch something? When do you do that? There will be a reassessment, I think, at the end of the year when you have eclipses in September and your 7th, where you're considering taking clients, when you have a retrograde in your 10th house, when you might be playing around with the idea of whether or not you're going to, try launching a business, and you're going to want to do it during a really good Jupiter transit. So after the Mercury retrograde in November, you're going to have a whole pileup of planets that are going to come through your Jupiter. And I would say that would be the time that I would be joining other astrology groups and associations, contemplating or considering maybe to aim for some kind of launch that maybe you're going to be doing right at the end of December, beginning of January, if you do want to segue into kind of taking clients, But yeah, hopefully that's helpful in kind of giving you the long and short of it. And just know the things that you do during your Saturn return are very important. We can't rush through it, especially if you have Saturn in Aries. There are some things that you're really defining about what's most important to you right now. And if you look at Saturn in your first house trine Pluto, you have to ask yourself if your heart is really in what you're studying, or if you're doing it because you're feeling like I'm doing it for financial reasons or because I thought this was going to give me security. You have to decide if you're going to be able to kind of stay that path. And it's so funny. I know a lot of people who went to law school. I know a lot of people who went to school to become like a therapist or a psychologist. And a lot of people who also studied philosophy that all went through higher levels of education only to kind of come back around and they're like, okay, I'm an astrologer. And those things can all be helpful in many ways. So just some food for thought. Let me know what happens. It's always nice to see other people from the 520 here. All right, so that was Sabrina. We're now moving on to Whitney, Carla, and Laurel. Let's see what Whitney has to say. Thank you guys for your patience, by the way. I appreciate it. I know that sometimes these take a little bit longer. All right, so Whitney is Solara Blaze, April 24th, 81 in Pasadena. So happy belated. She says, may I have a dealer's choice reading as a birthday tree? Whatever transits or progressions or energies you see for me towards my highest good. Thank you for your insights. I hope you are happy, well, and healthy. Well, thank you. All right, so let's take a look. We got a Virgo rising. She has her moon in Capricorn and her sun in Taurus. You just had your birthday and looks like now you're moving into a Venus annual perfection year. So Venus is going to be very important. So the one thing I would say to you is if we look at this from the kind of the lens of your year that's getting activated, you're moving out of an 8th house year, which honestly sometimes can feel a little brutal. Where it's like lots of change, lots of endings, letting things go, like needing to come to terms with stuff. And that was a Mars year where you have Mars at 29 degrees. So critical turning points, ending, financial stuff. Now you're moving into your 9th house Venus year, where I remember that year, it's like the lights turn on and I'm like, oh my God, okay, what did I learn about the last year? And where am I traveling? And what do I believe in? And Venus is a benefic. So you have Venus natally in the 9th at a 9, and you're going to be in a Venus year. So I think that this is going to be about you indulging a little bit more when it comes to pleasure, when it comes to upgrading the airplane seats, when it comes to learning. Maybe you're going to be picking up some courses, going to some seminars, listening to some lectures, you know, that kind of stuff you'll enjoy. Especially Taurus is going to be about culture, food, money, gardening, cooking, anything to do with art, beauty, that kind of stuff. And if you look at your natal Venus, it squares your north node in the 11th and your south node in the 5th. So this means that you have to evolve, you have to grow, you have to learn about what your purpose is this year. And you might have to travel places. You might have to, like I said, take courses, or there might be teachers or gurus that come in that help you. There can be long distance relationship opportunities or connecting with people far away. And you're going to want to watch Venus all year. So right now, Venus is in the final moments of Pisces. So it's kind of like reevaluations or reassessments of relationships, you know, partnerships, things like that. But you also want to watch when planets come into your 9th house. So for example, this new moon that we're about to have in a couple of days is going to be very close to your Venus. So planting a seed revolving around, well, where do I want to travel? What do I want to learn? What do I believe in? And Venus will be conjunct Saturn. So are you traveling with a partner? Are you thinking about kind of, you know, going to meet somebody somewhere? Are you kind of broadening your search optimizations for, you know, meeting a new person? Are you planning a trip? These kinds of things come to mind. And then you'll want to watch also when planets come through your 9th house. So the sun will be there obviously in May. Mercury is going to show up, which is also very likely for traveling mid-May. And then Venus is going to show up, and I would be paying attention to your Venus return around June 15th. Also could be good for traveling. It could mean that you're spending a little bit more money on luxury stuff. It is possible there could be some kind of love stuff going on at a distance here as well. Now, the other thing that I think is worth mentioning is you're starting to feel this year a little bit of tension. So Saturn is going to go into Aries. So it's still in your 7th house. Honestly, maybe where there's been some confusion or not being sure about relationships. Now you're looking at partners being like, okay, are they who I thought they were? I'm like holding them accountable. Saturn will start opposing your Jupiter, which is about relationships, and also your natal Saturn. So this is the setup going into 2026 where you're going to be like, am I on the same page as another person? Or where have I been reluctant to be in a relationship or commit? Working with a therapist, working with an astrologer, while Saturn and Neptune are in your 7th house can be really helpful, can give you really great clarity and kind of feedback. But also new people can come into your life that are asking you to grow. And you've got exalted Saturn conjunct Jupiter in your 1st house. I mean, that's pretty good when it comes to relationships and balance and knowing yourself. But now you're having to kind of get outside of yourself more and consider other people or think about other people's dynamic. And for some of these transits, it'll be like you're having to really learn what it means to work and kind of, you know, meet people halfway. In other ways, the opposition can materialize as you going like, nope, there's the boundary, this isn't working for me. And like you're more willing to kind of be assertive with other people. So it's kind of like the Libra rising horoscopes in a way. So I would watch for that because I think that that's significant that it's setting up. And obviously you have Pluto that's about to turn retrograde in May, but Pluto is getting very close to your South Node. So the positive is that Pluto will sextile Saturn. So that means through changes in relationships and responsibility in relationships, you can actually heal childhood issues. You can heal a broken heart, you know, issues of vulnerability. And also it's going to trine your Jupiter and your Saturn. So it's like, this is where there could be like some major creative bursts, some major changes in your love life, some major changes with like younger people. And as it turns retrograde, it's slightly into a square with your Mercury and your Sun. So, you know, sometimes this materializes more as like issues with sixth house stuff. So like work, pets, you know, routines, habits, changing your schedule, making time for more travel, making time for more learning, you know, that might be part of it. But between Pluto on your South Node, where you're having to kind of give up old patterns and ways of doing things, and also Pluto coming into a square, again, with your chart ruler, Mercury and your Sun, I think you need a break in your schedule or your pattern sometimes. I think that you need to take a course or continuing education, or you need to travel somewhere, something that's going to feel more inspirational while you're in your 9th house year. And it's also so important because it squares your nodes as well. So I don't know, think of like a Taurus hobby that you want to learn more about. Aromatherapy, essential oils, crystals, jewelry making, you know, cooking, any of those things that is going to break up some of the intensity of what feels like sometimes a very monotonous like routine, you know, which you're triple earth. Routine is like your middle name for the most part. maybe you have a little bit more of like a Sag vibe with all those planets in your 9th house, but this is about breaking out of routine and like getting out of your comfort zone. So hopefully you had a great birthday, and I'm sure we will chat soon. All right, we got Carly, we've got Laurel, we have got Ada. So you guys are all on deck. Carly, I wonder if Carly is back from dinner. I almost feel like I should wait until I see her in the chat. So let's see if Carly says something. If she doesn't, then I'll take Laurel. So Laurel and Ada, you guys will be next until I hear from Carly. So Carly, if you're listening, come back. All right, Laurel. I want to make sure I have the right one. December 20th, 64. You're new around here. I don't have you in here. All right, Laurel, will you remind me what your question is? Because I don't see it in here. So I will plug in your chart and then we'll get into it. December 20th, 64, Toronto. .30 a.m. Scorpio rising, Sun in Sag, and your moon is in Cancer. Did you send me a question? I'm not sure if you sent it in the chat. Will I move or stay after several renovations because of water issues in the home off and on for the last few years? Got it. All right, Laurel. Well, I mean, you know, the thing is like from the perspective of Sagittarius Sun, very rarely do I lead with like the Sun horoscope, but my Sag Suns are dealing with either major flooding, house issues, mold issues, stuff crumbling, foundation problems, stuff falling apart, or it's like emotional stuff. And it can be both. You can be emotionally spent with some of that. That's a lot of like the Saturn Neptune squares. Your 4th house is actually a Scorpio rising, Aquarius. And part of what's been happening is Mars and Pluto have been opposing. And these are your chart rulers, by the way. And when Mars gets scrappy and it tries to do something, Pluto hits back. So it means that you've been you've been torn as to whether or not, well, do I move? Do I not move? And if I do move I somewhere further away? And if I have to move, also the Mars retrograde in the 9th house could mean like you going, well, you know, like, is this legal? So I don't know your situation. I don't know if you're renting or if you own a house, but I've seen some Scorpio risings with this where the houses are having issues and like the Mars retrograde is materialized as them like suing their landlord because they're not fixing things. Okay, so it really depends. Anyway, I feel like for you, we need to see something significant going on with both Saturn as well as Uranus. So, you know, nothing is really happening right now. However, in a couple months' time, you're going to see Uranus come into a square with Saturn in your 4th house, which means it can promote some kind of sudden spontaneous change or move. That is possible as Saturn deals with movement. And I think really at some point, you're actually going to have more problems with your house. I don't like saying that, but Uranus square Saturn makes me feel like you're going to be like, that's it, I've had enough. And I don't know if you're in a relationship, but it's in your 7th house. So it could mean that you have enough issues back and forth dealing with people who come in and fix things. You could have some kind of, you know, tiff with a family member or a roommate or a partner that's like, that's it, no more of this. And Uranus wants to break free and Saturn wants to stay. And obviously you got Saturn in the 4th house, so that means you're a little reluctant to pick up and move away from home. But with Uranus going into your whole sign 8th, it means that you're looking at much more costly fixes, okay? Like there is going to be stuff that's going to be coming up where there is going to be more problems with, you know, Gemini people. So it could be neighbors. It could also mean now you're going to have some electrical issues. If water gets into something, you're looking at it frying stuff or flooding stuff, and then you're going to be like, oh my God, why am I staying here? This is becoming a money pit. And Uranus is going to oppose your Venus. So it means that I think because of some of the financial frustrations, you're going to be like, I've had enough. And probably either the people who are coming in and working on things or who are dealing with it because they're trying to find solutions or they're trying to fix it, they might be putting patches on things that don't actually fully get fixed. As a Scorpio rising, I also think about how going into the new year, you're going to have quite the stellium of planets coming into your 4th house. So to me, this is like if there was ever a time where you're going to get pushed to make a move, it's definitely going to be the beginning of next year. So even if it's not something you're doing right now, I think that inevitably, I look at this and I go, I would want to get out of there before you're ultimately going to end up having to move, as much as I hate to say that. Especially with Saturn and Neptune squaring your Sun and your Mercury all year, it's just going to continue to create conflict. And somebody who has Saturn and Neptune in my 4th house, who I've also had my house flood, I noticed that when Saturn was going through my 4th house and it was squaring stuff that was in my chart, it was like whenever I was not dealing with or processing emotions, like it would like the weirdest things would happen. A pipe would burst. There was like torrential rains one summer in LA, and there was like 3 inches of water in my house. Like, I'm not even kidding you. It like every single time I saw Saturn and Neptune go through my 4th house, I was like, I'm not dealing with emotions. Okay, got it. And it would just keep coming back until eventually I dealt with it and then I moved. So yes, I think you will move. That's the long and short of it. I would say might be a good idea to start thinking about this sooner rather than later. Because by the time Uranus gets into Gemini in July, it's going to start squaring Saturn, and you're going to start having potential electrical issues or even issues that can be impacting vehicles or electronics. Hopefully that's helpful. I hope the move is a good move. All right, what's up, Carly? How is it going? We waited for you. I was like, I want to wait until she gets back here so she's not searching through the chat trying to find her reading. What did you have for dinner? Come on, where is her chart? I know I plugged it in here. Where is it? Where is it? Pizza. My favorite. All right. I'm going to plug you back in really quick because I don't know why it's not popping up. There it I was like, where is she? Which one is it? This one. Okay. July 7th, 94, Libra rising, sun in Cancer, moon in Cancer. Carly says, what to expect with this Taurus new moon? Any specific guidance on love life? I'm single and dating, but very much looking for a committed relationship and feel like I keep running into roadblocks or guys coming in one way and switching up out of nowhere. All right, sounds like Libra rising things. So the new moon is going to be in Taurus. It will be interesting because it's technically in your 7th house. So this is like the second one that you have had now, right? So this basically tells me that you had 2 opportunities for a restart, both the solar eclipse in Aries, which honestly last month with a Mercury retrograde and a Venus retrograde, you know, it's been kind of chaotic. But now the new moon is going to be in a solid grounded sign. So Taurus can bring more stability. 7 degrees can be relationships. Obviously this is ruled by Venus, and Venus is conjunct Saturn in the 6th. So it's like any relationship that's kind of been around, I think the last like month or so with Venus retrograde and Venus conjunct Saturn, it's like, it feels like work. It's like, why is this so difficult? Why is it so challenging? And it takes a lot out of you dealing with other people. There's positive and negatives to this. The positive is that the new moon is actually coming into a sextile with your moon. The positive is that it is also simultaneously sextiling your Saturn. So I feel like this is about feeling good about making emotional changes in relationships. Also, you know, the sextile to Saturn in your 5th house is about commitment and something serious and long lasting. And then you're going to see also this opposes Jupiter in your 1st house. So it can act like a magnet where it's just like ding, bringing somebody in. Where this is difficult is this is kind of on par with like actually the Scorpio rising horoscopes or predictions. So the new moon square Mars in the 10th house means that, you know, new people are coming in to kind of help you make the necessary moves and adjustments when it comes to your career, your work. It can mean also that this is being brought on by the willingness to change your social circles and your connections and how you're meeting people. And it's also squaring Pluto in your 4th house, which is about kind of like your home, your family, your living situation, like that kind of stuff. So, wow, this is a grand fixed cross that's going to be in your chart. That means that through new people coming in, job changes, you become more optimistic, and there's also changes with relationships. To understand what's going to happen with your relationships, we actually need to see planets going through the 7th house, or we need to see a significant transit on your Mars. So this is planting the seed. But I'm thinking way out into the future. When we get to 2026, when Saturn's coming into your 7th house, and this might be about living or some serious commitment with the relationship, and Uranus is coming back into a conjunction with your Mars, which means it might prompt a spontaneous move or relocation, serious commitment, suddenly getting married, that kind of stuff. So you do have a lot to look forward to in those things. I feel like Saturn in Aries is not the easiest transit, but Saturn in the 7th house, as long as you're choosing people who feel more so responsible. And I think for all Libra risings, it's about finding people who mean what they say and say what they mean. And they're taking the necessary actions and they're like maturing, that relationships can evolve. And also, you know, because Saturn deals with your home, it's like, can you see yourself moving in with someone? So it's looking like that's going to be the goal over the next year. And I think also Jupiter coming into your sun sign and your moon sign also can be an indication that there's a possibility that you're going to be meeting like a long-term partner. But the spontaneousness, that's been the retrograde, and also Uranus coming into conjunction with your Mars. Your partner's going to be a combination of Gemini, Taurus, and Scorpio. So look for those signs. And you might meet more than one at a time, where it's like you meet one and then you meet another, because Gemini is about 2. And you might meet somebody while you're traveling or while they're traveling. And they might have a background in like flying, law, higher education, publishing, something like that, like a very like Mars Gemini thing. And I would go and learn about Saturn transit the 7th house, and also Uranus transit your Mars, because it's going to be like whatever happens very quickly. Somebody's going to come very quickly into your life. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Carly. Yeah, it's been pretty chaotic for Libra risings. You don't even have Saturn or Neptune in your 7th house yet. Just wait. Just wait. All right. So that was for Carly. I see Laurel sending me comments too as well. I think maybe you're just kind of playing catch up. Major water and mold. It's been major. Yeah, you have to be really careful, Laurel. Like, you know, I don't specialize in fixing homes or anything else other than astrology, but I know that Saturn and Neptune in the fourth house, it can make you very sick. Fourth house from the sun, and it's lingering into your fifth house, which means also if you have younger people in the house, if you have kids in the house, if you have romantic partners in the house, other people, it's going to actually interfere and create problems for those people as well. All right, Carly, I hope that was helpful. Laurel, I hope that was helpful. I would definitely say time to get to stepping, girl, because that is not somewhere that you're going to want to be staying because it's going to become more costly. All right, we've got Ada, Christina, and Liliana. You guys are all on deck. And let's see. I think this is the part where I have to start plugging charts in. Yeah. So give me just a second, guys. I've got just a couple people I have to plug in. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people left. So let me plug your guys' charts in, and then that way we can just keep on rolling. All right, 4:11 a.m. Bridgeport. For Janaki, can I get your information? It says Lauren Swing. Because if I don't get your info, I'm not going to be able to do your reading, so I'll have to refund you. We're looking for Janicki Lauren Swing. Oh, you sent another one. Never mind, just saw it. Let's see. So 912 Glendale. Oh, thank you, Casa. Am I pronouncing your name right? Kasaha, thank you for your donation. All right, let's put in Lauren. Uh, 11/23/84. And that was at 8:13 a.m. in Dallas. Sasha. And Silk. All right, I think that's just about everyone. All right, thanks for your patience. Let's get back into this. So we've got Ada, Christina, and Liliana. You guys are all on deck. All right, so for you, Ada, I've got you December 6th, 84. December, not February. Let me change that. December 6th, 84. There we go. All right, so you are a Scorpio rising, moon in Taurus, sun in Sag. And that was at 4:11 a.m. She says, any insight into work, love, or home? Well, which one do you want to know? They're all kind of getting impacted by each other. I think a lot of that is the new moon that's coming in, which is about new opportunities for relationships. That's encouraging you to grow on the home front and also make changes to your career or your status. A lot of support coming from partners is going to help you grow, right? Especially with that new moon right along your descendant. I think that's the most prominent because I can talk to you about how to navigate work or how to navigate home, but the most pressing thing is going to be the new moon because that's what's going to happen first. So because it's along your 7th house, around the 27th, this is a good time to set intentions for a new relationship and growth. It is ruled by Venus, which is conjunct Saturn, and that's in your 5th house of dating. So there can be serious decisions made about relationships, younger people, children, dating. It can also mean that you've been seeing somebody who's kind of going back and forth and you're trying to feel it out to see if it's going to stick. And if so, it's about kind of going the distance and really putting yourself out there and like getting out of the past. It's also really nice because it is trining some of your personal placements in Capricorn, which can really enhance communication with clients, work, relationships, and siblings. And then the other thing that I think about is that you're coming into your Mars in the 10th house transit, which is more work related. And it's going to oppose your natal Mars, where we always kind of get our feathers ruffled a little bit. And then it's going to square Saturn and your moon. So it almost looks like the second half of May, work is definitely more demanding, more pressing. And it's almost taking precedent over what's going on the home front and what's going on with relationships. So you've got about 2 weeks and then it's going to be heavy, heavy, heavy work focus. And it does look like there's either a change going on in your living situation or how you're communicating with family because transit Pluto right now is going through your 3rd house and it's squaring your Pluto. So we come into this round about the time we're like 40, 41-ish. Our Pluto square is helping us kind of like assess what has not been working And Pluto in Scorpio is a strong placement in the first house is the self. So it's learning how to better communicate and kind of express yourself and also make the necessary changes on the home front that you have been resisting making. So Uranus coming in conjunction with your North Node, you'll see spontaneous opportunities for relationships and people to kind of pop up. But while it's doing that, it's also trining your Venus. So dating online, dating people locally, going on short trips, meeting people through, you know, friends, maybe even family can definitely happen. Work trips or something else I would kind of pay attention to because that comes up in your chart. And with the Mars-Venus trine at the beginning of June, we might feel like relationships are actually kind of shaping up and more so on the horizon. But in your chart, you have South Node Saturn in the 1st, North Node Moon in the 7th. So you go through periods of like coming together and breaking apart with partners or with relationships, or periods of being single and then being committed. And so a lot of that's letting go of old fears of vulnerability and being on your own and kind of opening up to that North Node exalted moon in the 7th, which is somebody who's calm, peaceful, wants to work with you, somebody who might be a little slow, a little practical, but it's going to actually play very nicely with some of the Saturn transits this year. So it's very likely you will see with Uranus trine your Venus, there's new relationship opportunities coming in, but this will also maybe create some changes on the home front, right? Hopefully that's helpful for you. We've got Christina, Liliana, and then Janicki. Let's see, what does Christina have to say? There we go. August 12th, 1994, and that's at 2:55 a.m., and that was in Park Ridge, Illinois. So Cancer rising, Sun in Leo, Moon in Libra. She says, hey Candace, I've heard that I have a yacht on my chart between Mars, Pluto, and Uranus, but I'm having a hard time figuring out if it's actually really one in my chart and what it means. All right, so Mars, Pluto, and Uranus. So we've got Mars. It does in conjunct Pluto, and it does in conjunct Uranus. Yes, that is a yacht. Actually, if you want to get technical, well, it's a little wide. I was going to say you almost have two of them. Almost. It's not close enough. It needs to be like within about 2 degrees to be a yacht. So a yacht is when you have a sextile and you also have an in conjunct. So we've got Neptune and Uranus between 21 and 23, sextiling Pluto at 25. So through transformative power of creativity, self-expression, dating, endings and beginnings with your love life, children, a lot of unexpected, unconventional, out of the blue changes and unusual relationship dynamics, especially with this being retrograde. So you're clearing out karma of people, I think, being lost or being confused or not knowing what they want or having a hard time conforming. And the peak energy is the yacht. So like when you think about Gemini and Capricorn, like Gemini is very kind of like scattered, like it's all over the place, like it has a hard time focusing or being consistent. It also wants information, it wants to talk, it wants to get everything out. And Capricorn's very much like, okay, like get the show on the road, let's get this done. And then Pluto or Scorpio is very much about intensity, you know, going deep, right? And like Gemini wants to stay on the surface. So Mars in conjuncts both of these signs, which basically means it has nothing in common, but if you can work with your 5th house and your 7th house, it'll actually give you a lot of power through your Mars. Mars is kind of channeling all of that. And Mars makes other aspects too. Mars trines your moon, it sextiles your sun, right? So it has outlets. But long story short, Mars in the 12th house can sometimes manifest as repressed anger, frustration, agitation, trouble sleeping, anxiety and worry and sleepless nights. It's in a Gemini degree, so it can mean that you can have a very vivid imagination when it comes to writing or storytelling or sharing information or ideas. Your intuition can be very strong. You could have like precognitive dreams. But if you're not communicating and talking about what concerns you have, what stress you have, if you're hiding out and not being assertive or not talking to your partners, your romantic others about your goals, right? Then it's going to manifest as resentment, anger, frustration, kind of blockages. Now, on the other hand, you could have enough really interesting or sometimes challenging relationship dynamics to the point that it pushes you to self-reflect, self-heal. Journaling, walking, breathwork exercises, these things can be actually really helpful. And through that time where you feel like you have more alone time or isolation, because maybe you feel like there is some inconsistency with relationships, you learn a lot about yourself, your spiritual practice develops, maybe you read like self-help books, maybe you get into hot yoga, maybe you start working on like empowerment mantras, right? Things like that. And that's really how the yacht is going to manifest. And also, like, where one person leaves your life, another person comes in. There are some people who you're just going to have as like a lover, and then there's other people that are going to be like real committed relationships. And I think that with Mars quincunxing 2 planets in your 7th, it's almost like the way that you look at certain relationships ending and people leaving your life, instead of getting frustrated or agitated or trying to fix it, it's like kind of being like, clearly they're being removed for some reason. Like, they've served their purpose. They've been here for as long as they need to be here. And like, now I'm supposed to be moving on to the next thing. And it's about the perspective of how you look at that, I think. I just want to make sure I answered your question appropriately. So let's see. I was wondering if you could verify what it was in my chart, what it means. I left my career in speech pathology and have been feeling pretty low also for a while now with your career. Trying to get a better understanding that so you can focus mainly on that area would be amazing. So, I mean, speech pathology, that could very much be Mars and Gemini. So it could be like, well, I moved out of one job. It's quincunx Neptune, which rules your career, where you're like, I don't have patients that I'm working with, so I feel like there's a lack of purpose. And the quincunx to also Uranus means that it's a period of like self-reflection. And, you know, Jupiter's in your 12th house. So you're feeling like you're going through this period of being kind of on your own. But as soon as Jupiter crosses over your ascendant, you're going to feel very different. Very different. You may actually be finding that, you know, once planets are fully now moving through Aries, it can give you a totally different perspective on work. A lot of Cancer risings are going through an ending of one career and a beginning of another because, you know, Saturn's coming into the 10th house after the eclipses. I think when Jupiter crosses over your Mars at the end of May, that could bring work opportunities. It's also possible when Venus is crossing over your Mars, that could bring work opportunities. So both, you know, end of May, end of July. What do you learn about the downtime that you have and when you're away from other people? That's really what I would think about. And how does that impact you mentally? And like, how can you be doing some writing, mantra, walking type exercises, things where you can kind of clear the mind and kind of get ready for the next phase of what's coming in for your career. Saturn and Neptune can have you feeling a little lost when it's in your 10th house, but what's positive is that it is going to be coming into some really nice aspects over the next several years with Mercury and your Sun. So you'll actually find whatever new kind of phase is starting off this year, it will come from that period of time that you've had like reflection. And I think that's getting highlighted by, you know, Jupiter on your Mars in your 12th house. Hopefully that's helpful in giving you some insight, Christina. We've got Liliana. All right, so that was July 29th, 97 at 12:59 p.m. and that was in New York. Anything to look out for in terms of relationships in general? Well, relationships for you is Venus, because Taurus is your 7th house. So we need to see something going on with your Venus for a relationship to pop up. Your 7th house Lord is in the 10th. And so it does seem to kind of indicate there's a possibility of meeting people at work, through work friends, through work connections, networks, parties, stuff like that. And your Venus is in Virgo. So it's in a sign that is a little bit challenging. It means you can be a little particular. You're very picky for waiting for the right thing to kind of come in, but that's okay. And you've also got Sun and Juno on your midheaven, which can also be an indication that your potential future partner is very much tied to your career and your career identity. You might work with them. It might be a boss. It might be somebody you meet through work. So if I were to go in order, basically the last several weeks, you know, Mars has been coming back into Leo, and it had started retrograde in December, which maybe for you was a reassessment of your career, but it's also been a reevaluation of like what you're doing in regards to relationships and what you're looking for. Now you've got Juno and Mars coming back into conjunction, which means like there's something revving up with your work colleagues, what you're doing professionally, your identity, you know, out in the world. And you're going to have a new moon in Taurus on Sunday where you're planting new seeds for relationships. Now, this is great because it means now you can say, okay, I'm ready to meet somebody. You know, it's at a 7, it's a relationship-oriented degree, and it's trining your 7th house lord, Venus. But this is also a new moon that's squaring Mars, which means you have to put yourself out there, be bold and be daring, and also be kind of active at work. And it's also going to be squaring Pluto, which means that people are coming in to help you focus on where you're going and getting out of your past outdated ways of doing things. So that'll play out over about 6 months until you get into the fall of this year, and then it'll turn into a full moon in Taurus. And that full moon is also going to be kind of trine your Venus. Now, another transit that you're going to want to watch for relationships is you are going to have Mars come into conjunction with Venus. So this could be another time that you meet somebody at work, specifically right around the end of June, when Venus comes into conjunction with the moon and Mars, okay, June 29th. And when this happens, Mercury, which is the ruler of these two planets, is retrograde or getting ready to retrograde over your sun. My thought is that there's either going to be a change at work, you're going to change jobs, a scheduling change, maybe you meet some like new people in a department, maybe there's people from work saying, hey, come out with us. Like something that happens in June or July like that, pay attention, because I think it'll materialize as you meeting someone. And then you're going to have Venus, which rules your 7th house, come into conjunction with Juno right around the end of August. And then it's going to sit on your sun, which is yet another transit, end of August, beginning of September. And then when Venus is coming into conjunction with your Venus, this is your Venus return around the 24th. That's another time that you're going to want to watch. Now, you will start having eclipses pretty soon, pretty close to your Venus. This will be taking place, let's see, no, not yet. So the Virgo eclipse on the 21st of September will be around your Venus return. And then you're going to have another eclipse that's also going to be within range of your Venus around March 3rd, 2026. And that will also kind of trine your 7th house cusp. And a reassessment of a romantic relationship looks like it's going on in March of 26. So, yeah, I can see a relationship coming in. What you're going to want to watch, though, is with that South Node on your Venus, there can be a sense of like dealing with people from the past, soulmates coming in, you know, people who you've dealt with that you're like, do I want to let them go? Like there is this reassessment of a relationship that I see kind of going on for you like next spring, right? Anyway, I hope that that's helpful for you. All right, so we've got Janaki. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. I'm not sure. All right, so we've got you here. And it looks like that was 11/23/84. And that was at 8:13 a.m. in Dallas. Let's fix that. 8:13. There we go. So that gives you a Sag rising, Sag moon, Sag sun. Holy Sagittarius. I have only seen a few of those in my entire life. They are very far and few between. All right. All right. So let's see. What did she say? Astrology. I forgot to add my info on Pluto transit over my Mars. The next future, in the near future, would be great. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about your Mars placement in the degree and all that stuff and what Mars rules in your chart. So as a Sagittarius, I use Placidus. I don't use whole sign, all right? So you might resonate with whole sign. I use Placidus. Obviously, Aquarius is going to be more connected to your mind, how you communicate, what you're driving, how you're driving, what you're learning, you know, how you're writing, how you're speaking to people, friends, family, siblings, that kind of stuff. But Pluto represents your subconscious. So not only do I think that some of the stuff that happens during the transit will be unexpected, okay? Because the 12th house, what we don't see coming, endings and beginnings. Everybody thinks that Scorpio is like about death. Scorpio is just as much about life as Taurus is. Like they're complementary. Scorpio just teaches you that there are things that have to end in order for new things to come in. And I say that because you have your Mars at a 5. So this is either going to be about you having more of an openness and willing to talk about what's on your heart. Maybe practicing more vulnerability in expressing yourself, finding positive ways to communicate and channel anger or frustration. I think it's also going to be about some major shifts revolving around your finances and your self-esteem. It can make you feel like suddenly you're very wild with the idea of possessing something. So the 5th house, the 5 degrees could be a child, could be a boyfriend or a girlfriend, a romantic partner, getting really into wanting to be in private spaces where you're taking photos, you're painting, that kind of stuff. I think a Pluto-Mars conjunction is a lot better than a Pluto-Mars square. That's what I think. I can speak from experience. I'm going through transit Pluto square my Mars right now, and it's in the 2nd house. And I have Mars conjunct Pluto in the 2nd house natally. I would much rather deal with this transit than a square. Remember that the conjunction is the fusion. So you're taking the 2 planets and you're fusing them together. Pluto and Mars are very similar, right? Pluto is just a higher octave of Mars. So what are you becoming passionate about? And also, like, let's make lemonade, right? So if we look at the transit, what is it doing? Well, it's squaring your natal Pluto, which is saying you have to get real about your goals and you have to start communicating and expressing what you value. The downside of this transit is you could become very obsessed with owning things, collecting things. It means that you can become very focused on money and resources and obsessive about it, and you'll spend money on whatever it is that you feel like is going to bring you fun, or maybe things that can be kind of like risk-taking. It's at a 5. But it's sextiling your sun. So I look at this and I go, oh, well, she's going to feel like there's some stuff coming up subconsciously, or she's feeling, really enticed to, buy the car, go on the trip, take the course or the area of study or go to the retreat. Like, you're going to start being impulsively spending things. Like, that's what will come up. Some significant style changes can happen here as well. So you might feel like you're tapping into more of a youthfulness in how you're dressing, or you're picking up on stuff that maybe you loved when you were younger, or patterns and trends are kind of coming back. Just be cautious with spending. I think that's the biggest challenge here. And a lot of it will be stuff that's kind of coming up for you subconsciously. And I just noticed your South Node, Sun, Moon, Uranus, Mercury are all in the 12th house, Placidus. So there can be this sense of finally figuring out how to give yourself security without things, without the money, without the house, without the clothes, without all the things. It's how can I reevaluate my values and figure out how I can give myself security without feeling like it has to come from things or people that are external of me, or material things, right? So you want to lean into the sextile to your sun and your moon, which could be tapping into stuff with your childhood, stuff emotionally with your parents, what you've been learning about that, traveling, learning more about emotional healing. All that stuff seems to kind of correlate. And, you've been going through Pluto squaring Pluto this year. So, I hate to say it, but thankfully that was the precursor, right? Pluto square Pluto has been bringing up all of the things that you've been afraid to talk about, think about, or share. Now as Pluto comes in conjunction with Mars, you're I'm going to do something about it. But yeah, there can be some combativeness. There can definitely be some conflict. She says, hey, what's up with Uranus North Node Algol? That's more in the 6th house. And Uranus there can bring spontaneous challenges to your throat, your vocal cords, your digestion. It can also bring up alcoholism. Algol is connected to that. Or where you're feeling like you're losing your mind because of something going on at work, or you have a pet that's acting a total menace, or you've got somebody at work that's being a pain in the ass. You can become really obsessive and fixated also about money and management of money. And so sometimes Pluto Mars, it wants to control something. And with Uranus being in the 6th house, it's you may have accountants or tax people or other, telling you what you could or you shouldn't be doing with money, and you're not going to like it. I have found with Mars, Pluto natally conjunct, and also through the square, just physical fitness helps you deal with the frustration. And think of the Pluto square Pluto as the preparation prior to kind of coming into this in this next year. But Mars is also about love affairs, creativity, risk. So I could see you possibly being I want to take some risks with investments. And you'll be thinking about things you can be investing into, or you'll be willing to spend a lot of money into hobbies that you enjoy. All right, we've got Tamara. I know we have 2 of them. This is Tamara A. So let me pull your chart up. And I've got you here. There we go. Looks like, let me change the time here. So it looks like it was March 3rd, 71. And that was in Glendale, California at 2112. So I think that's 912 if I'm doing my math correctly. There we go. So that's going to give you a Libra rising, moon in Gemini, sun in Pisces. And Tamara says, hope I'm doing this correctly first time. Well, welcome. New moon reading, what's coming up for me? Anything that catches your eye, love, career, may not be watching at the time. Sarah on YouTube. All right, so it's Sarah. What catches my eye? Well, as like a Libra rising, I'm always going to look at what's going on with Venus. Oh, hello, Venus-Pluto transit. I know what that's like. That was colorful for me. So look, you know, you're a late degree Libra, so some of the predictions will branch on what's going on with Scorpio and Scorpio rising. So you always want to know where Venus is. You know, Venus has recently been retrograde. To me, it looks like a lot of reassessment of both your health, habits, routine, but also your love life or children or younger people in your life. And you're under a once in a lifetime Pluto transit Venus, okay? So if Venus is in the 4th house, this basically means that your focus is on home, family, romantic partners, children, you know, your home decor, your security, property, real estate, parents, that kind of stuff. So when Pluto transits this, it basically means that there is a huge transformation underway. And like you've been going through this actually for like the last like year and a half. So you're actually in the tail end of it. Pluto is actually going to start retrograding here over like the next month at the beginning of May, and it will retrograde for about 5 months and come into conjunction with your Venus. So you're technically done with the exact conjunction, but you're still feeling it for like the better part of the next 6-7 months. Major transformation of matters of the heart, any big changes with women in your family, inheritance, changes with property, buying, selling, renovating. Those are huge themes. Like Pluto hitting your chart ruler is a big deal. So now you're coming out of it. So I wonder what has been the rebirth period that you've been kind of going through, you know, privately or on the home front. And it looks like it's been a little challenging with Mars in the opposition. Like there's some stuff brewing in your private life, but you're being asked to really show up and like be responsible and be kind of focusing on what's going on with work. I do think there's going to be some reassessment of that that's going to be coming up. You'll see that over the summer. But for right now, I feel like the Venus-Pluto thing is pretty significant. And then you also have got, let's see, Jupiter's coming off of your moon. So that also can be a wealth period. There can be a lot of transformation emotionally and psychologically in how you're communicating and how you look at money. And we're getting ready to see Saturn and Neptune fully move into your 6th house. This is where it's more like Scorpio rising. Rashes, heat, allergies, any irritation, anything kind of going on with your head, your face, migraines. These are things I would watch for because your 6th house cusp is exactly 0 degrees. So I wonder the last couple of weeks with like Venus and Mercury retrograde there, you know, was it an issue with a pet? Have you had a health thing come up? Have you been trying to kind of be better with your habits? Have you been trying to change jobs? Something's been happening there. So now that Saturn's about to show up, it's about really taking your schedule, your health, your routine seriously. And it will continue to trine your 10th house pretty much throughout this year. So it's going to be stabilizing work, you know, in your career stuff. But a lot of my late degree Libra risings, early degree Scorpio risings are dealing with either changes with their kids, changes with their schedule, changes with their relationships, or changes with their job. And they're all kind of impacting each other at the same time. But I would bring it back home to the Venus-Pluto transit because something's going on there that is basically the rebirth. And you're going to see themes of this coming up pretty strongly again in like July until Pluto moves away from your Venus. So by the end of the year, basically, you know, you're kind of still feeling the heat, but you're out of like the direct fire. And then there is this like whole rebirth period where you're moving into a new phase of your life, which seems to be really big in January going into February of 2026. So be watching, you know, what has happened now that Venus is coming out of shadow, how your relationships improve. And I'd be curious to hear how that Pluto-Venus transit is materializing for you because Man, that looks like a lot all at one time in your 4th house. Hopefully that's helpful for you. All right, we've got Sasha and then Silk. All right, so Sasha. And also, if you guys haven't already liked the channel or subscribed, please do. We are generally here most every Friday at 6:00 p.m. Central Time. Will not be here next week, but most of the time I am here. All right, so we've got Sasha, who says, I'm February 18th, 1997, from Olympia, Washington, King County. What's up, Robbie? And she says, 8:05 a.m. I'm dying to know what my chart is showing you and how it'll manifest in the next 4 months. I'm desperate to move out of Washington, get into university, and meet new people. Any signs of big changes? I want to shed the old me so bad. I'm just about to enter my Saturn return. Well, you're right on time. So, you know, Saturn return, obviously a big turning point. This is the preparatory year. Like the last year you've seen eclipses near your Saturn, which has been preparing you to kind of redefine who you are. Obviously Saturn conjunct the South Node is I want to release the person who I've been to come into this new person. So the retrogrades, the eclipses have been preparing you for that. And obviously one of the themes I've observed from people who have Saturn in Aries is that there is a definite level of impatience. It's like, there's a lot of you guys that are like, you know, and I understand, I get it. Part of it is I have Venus and Saturn in Capricorn, so I'm like, no, you need to wait. You guys are really eager to make changes, and you guys are very confident, which is good. But you guys need to learn throughout your Saturn return that the maturity and the lessons come with time. Like your Saturn return isn't really over until you're like 31. Nobody tells you that. It's not until you're like 31, 32 that you start feeling different. So pump the brakes, take your time. It's a process. 2 is part of your Saturn return, because Saturn's in the 1st house of self and it trines Pluto in Sagittarius, which is about education. Wonderful. I mean, it means that you most likely you are going to have that transformation of self, go away, go to school, have that whole experience. So do I see that happening for you? Well, I mean, it's been colorful because I think a lot of Pisces and Pisces risings have felt spun out, not knowing what direction they're going in with the retrogrades. And Jupiter has been going through your 3rd house of education. Now it's going into the 4th. So it makes me feel like depending on when you're applying, when you're supposed to be going to school, what that looks like, you know, I mean, it could take more time. Definitely Uranus going into Gemini over the summer in July is going to shake things up for Pisces rising charts because it means that you might be spontaneously moving. Jupiter also, you know, going into the 5th house is going to open opportunities for you to meet new people, socialize, and also date. And you're going to see a Mercury retrograde that's going to go right over your Pluto at the end of the year. So I look at this and I go, okay, applying for school, maybe trying to get that situated, figuring out, you know, scheduling. I could see that coming up over the summer in July. And I could also see another reassessment period where it's about either applying or, you know, changing directions with school. That's going to be coming up for you in November, going into December of this year when we have all these retrogrades over your Pluto. And it's in opposition to Uranus. So it might be a lot of like money stuff. It can also mean that this is like a lot of education stuff where you're kind of rearranging, kind of deciding where you're going to go. But if I look into your Saturn return, when that comes up for you next year, Saturn is going to hit Saturn at a 5 and Neptune is going to be nearby. And Mars will be there. So you're like, yes, this is my dream. I'm living my dream, right? And then you've got Mars in its home sign and the sun is exalted. So I actually feel like, from my astrological perspective, even though Mars, Saturn, and Neptune in conjunction is not good, the fact that the sun is there protects it, I think, a little bit. And it might mean that if you have a clear vision and you know just exactly what you're doing and you feel like your finances, your goals, your confidence are all in order, you will be able to kind of move forward with some of this stuff. Yes, I already saved a playlist. I love it here. Okay, 9 degrees Taurus sun, the 12, Aquarius moon. Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing to kind of like think about is, you know, you have Saturn in opposition to Mars. So there is going to be this theme of like defining who you are, 1st house, in opposition to other people. So those other people could be your teachers, your parents, your family, your romantic partners. Like That's also about moving out and doing your own thing. And it's going to be not just personally doing your own thing, financially. There's going to be a financial side to this as well that's also going to be really significant, how you're learning how to become like more self-sufficient. So, you know, some of the best stuff I think has been kind of seeded recently, especially with the solar eclipse. The solar eclipse is very close to your Saturn, but you'll see that unfold probably from the full moon in Aries later this year. So here. Yep, right on your Saturn. Okay, oh no, that's next year. I take that back. Hold on. So this one. There we go. I was ahead of myself. This full moon. Where is it? Why am I not seeing it? Come on. There we go. It was this one. So in October. And notice this is a full moon ruled by Mars, and Mars is going through your whole sign, ninth. So maybe this is about finally that transition of like school and everything happening more so in the fall, or feeling like you're getting, I think, a little bit more kind of settled in and you're kind of in that space. And Jupiter on your moon is also a really good time to be moving as well, right? Yeah, definitely good timing. Where are you planning on going to school? And why does it look like you might renegotiate something or change your mind, or that there could be like a second option or a choice? If you're applying and doing that in the fall, I feel like there's going to be more than one choice for you, because Mercury is going to represent offers and partnerships. So keep an open mind as to where you may potentially be going, and know that Pisces is about releasing the old you. When Saturn fully comes into Aries, like next year, you're going to see like that shift that's going to happen, you know? Trying to move in the fall. Okay, perfect. So, you know, I would say trying to move before mid-November is ideal, because the retrograde can feel kind of like chaotic. But also Mercury is going to open the door to meeting new people. So it's like moving, and then suddenly you're like, oh, I'm going to school. I have roommates. Like, I'm meeting new people, you know. Philly and Boston. Okay, cool. I still think you'll have your choice. Because Mars represents your higher education, and it's in Libra. And it's in opposition to Saturn. So you might be like, well, I got into both, or the school that I wasn't crazy about, they want me. Like something like that kind of like happens, you know? So good thoughts your way for being able to go through that. I think the fact that you're optimistic about the changes will make your Saturn return all that much easier. Good luck. All right, and last but certainly not the least, we have Silk. What's up, Silk? I've got you here, July 14th, 95, Capricorn rising, sun in the sign of Cancer, and moon is in Aquarius. And Silk says, I'm trying desperately to move, but no place is following through. Anything in my chart to indicate a new beginning for home and possibly love. All right, so sounds like Capricorn rising problems. And you're in the tail end of your Saturn return. So honestly, now that you're wrapping yours up, it may materialize as a move. Mars rules your 4th house of home. Okay, so the positive is that Mars and Venus are kind of coming into a trine, especially right around the 3rd week of May. And that can mean that there is a possibility of having more comfort and security with home. And it might cost you a little bit. You might spend a little bit more than you want. There can definitely be a sense of trying to negotiate with somebody. That might work. But I do think between this transit and between Saturn leaving signs and going into Aries for Capricorn rising, it's going to represent something new. 4th house is home and family. The other way of looking at this is that it can be in an area that is like a bit more rural or remote with Saturn conjunct Neptune. And sometimes you end up going and visiting family, or going back to a place that you used to live. Now, truth be told, Saturn does not perform very well in this sign. And you've got some other things that are kind of working against you. What's working against you is that Saturn and Neptune are going to be in conjunction briefly this year, and then you'll see it again at the beginning of next year, where it's squaring your ascendant and your descendant. So you're kind of like, I'm having trouble with my living situation, whole sign 4th. I'm not seeing very clearly in terms of where I'm supposed to go, where I'm supposed to be moving. And it also creates some challenges for communication, not seeing yourself very clearly or other people. So you want to go and learn about transit Saturn square the ascendant and the descendant, transit Neptune, square the ascendant and the descendant. Saturn says get real. Neptune's like, I'm dreaming. So I've seen a lot of Capricorn risings that are like, I'm just gonna, you know, like move to another country, or I'm just, you know, some of you guys are like, oh my God, am I gonna be homeless? Like, be careful about giving into the fear. Work with some of the trines in your chart. I like that it's kind of coming into a trine with your Jupiter, which means that you may be more open to the fact that you're gonna be doing something short term or temporary. So it can mean that you're, you know, going in, maybe moving into a space where somebody is doing a sublease, or somebody is saying, hey, I need someone to take over my lease, or I'm, you know, relocating, and so I need somebody to, you know, stay in my place, something like that. Yeah, I mean, it's a Saturn Neptune square. It's distorting anything revolving around your home, and usually we feel lost. But what's positive is that while these are in conjunction with each other, Mars is going through Leo. So it's like you will find things you might spend a little bit more than you want to spend, especially in May. But then there's going to be a shift when Mars goes into Virgo, and you would be considering being like, am I just going to go to another state? Am I going to another city? Am I going to another country? You know, things like that might crop up for you in July, especially when Mars reactivates the eclipse, and it's also going to be conjuncture natal Mars. And then Saturn and Neptune will retrograde. So I kind of feel inclined to tell you, because Saturn and Neptune will go back into Pisces, whatever you do this year, you know, whether it's a 6-month lease, month-to-month, 1 year, you're finishing off somebody's lease, something like that is a better idea, because you're going to be getting more stabilized and situated on the home front right about a year from now, right? And so I get it. I can see why it's frustrating. You've also got Uranus square your moon, so that means people are being very flaky. You're not getting a lot of clarity, you know, about, you know, who's coming or who's going with your living situation. But you will have either female friends, romantic partners, or family that is going to start saying to you pretty soon, oh, you know, come visit me, you know, come stay with me. Like, they're going to be offering this because Jupiter is going to light up your 7th house. Relationships will get really good as well, and it'll trine Saturn. So whether that's relationship to women, to family, to friends, you're going to have some support going on there. And that northern conjuncture Saturn, it does still want you to kind of be flexible, and it wants you to travel. So I know you want to get grounded, but it's very hard to find stability when Saturn and Neptune are squaring your ascendant and your descendant. It's also very difficult when Uranus is squaring your moon to have some stability with your living situation. Both of these things are going to be happening over the next year, right? Yeah, I like Jupiter coming into your 7th this summer, like June and July. It starts trining Saturn, where you're like, oh, we're having serious conversations and relationships are improving. And, you know, go back to 2013, something happened that year with Jupiter hitting your 7th house and conjuncture Venus and your Mercury and your Sun. I had this transit. I had Jupiter going through my 7th house, and it was squaring Saturn, and I had Neptune in the 4th house. And when this happened, I was like, I hate where I'm living. I want to move. And I decided I was going to move, and I knew I had to spend time out of the house. So I did that entire summer. And then when Jupiter came into my 7th house and it was making aspects to my 7th house Lord, that's when I met my husband, and he was like, oh, just come move in with me. Like, I live in this other state, you know? And I was like, what? And then it made sense why I was like, I didn't figure out where I wanted to live yet. So sometimes Jupiter in the 7th can be that person who comes into your life that illuminates everything, that kind of creates this magnetic, you know, kind of, I don't know, optimism that makes you feel like, oh yeah, okay, you know, I could move here, or I could do this, or, you know, that there is some support that will kind of get you out of like the funk that you have been in with trying to figure out where you're supposed to live. All right. Anyway, I hope that is helpful for you. You had an eclipse on your IC too. So the bigger getting situated, I think, is actually going to be happening in the spring of next year. So keep it flexible this year, right? I hope you find something. Well, guys, that's it for me for today. So if you guys haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel, click the bell button below, give me a thumbs up. I'm going to be back on Sunday. We're going to do astro weather. We're going to talk all about Venus going back into Aries. I won't be here next week, but I'll catch you guys here for astrology in 2 weeks for the full moon in Scorpio. To see more about me and my work, click the links below and head over to beyondtheveiltarot.com. I teach astrology. I have beginners and intermediate courses. So if you guys want to learn astrology with me, I'd love to be your teacher. You can find that at beyondtheveiltarot.com. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. I hope you enjoy this very powerful new moon. Try to be cool out there. People are going to be kind of scrappy. So be nice, enjoy the weekend, and I'll catch you guys back here on Sunday. Take care.